LeBron and Savannah, a love story, written by Barron Darby, narration by Jessica Ann Bogart. Prologue. If you have arrived here because you grew up watching the kid from Akron carry the city of Cleveland on his shoulders, this book is for you. If you have arrived because you have, at some point in the last 20 years, asked yourself what it must be like to fall in love with a 16-year-old boy who turns into a household name before you finish your softball season, this book is for you. If you have arrived because you do not know who LeBron James is, and you do not know who Savannah Brinson was before the cameras found her, this book is for you also. I will tell you what I tell every reader of this series. The story you are about to spend 2 hours with is, at heart, the story of 2 children from one small Ohio city who picked each other on purpose when neither of them had a single reason to believe that picking each other would work out. The story is sourced from publicly available material, the interviews, the podcasts, the Vogue cover, the Sports Illustrated essay he co-wrote with Lee Jenkins on a July afternoon in 2014, the Cleveland Magazine sit-down, the Netflix docu-series, the cookbook, the skincare launch, the little speech she gave at the Foundation Gala in Akron on a Friday night in autumn, the one she wrote on the kitchen island the night before. Where the public record is silent, I have softened, omitted, or generalized. Where the public record asked the manuscript to tread carefully, the manuscript has tread carefully. I have not put words in their mouths that they have not, in some form, already said in public. What I have tried to do is sit at the kitchen table with the 2 of them and listen. The kitchen table is the room of this book. It will appear, in one form or another, in nearly every chapter you are about to hear. It is the kitchen of a small apartment off Hickory Street in Akron in the year 2004. It is the kitchen of a townhouse in suburban Cleveland in 2005. It is the kitchen of a Coconut Grove rental in 2010. It is the kitchen of a sprawling house in Bath Township, Ohio, with a family room that fits a Christmas tree the size of a small barn. It is, eventually, a kitchen in Brentwood, with morning light on the marble counter, and a daughter on a stool, and a husband who has been awake since 5 in the morning, and is, before anyone else in the house, already on his second coffee. The story goes like this. 2 teenagers from Akron met at a football game in the autumn of 2002. One of them was a basketball prodigy that the entire city of Akron already knew about. The other one had no idea who he was. They talked. They got each other's numbers. They went to Outback Steakhouse on their first date. He left the leftovers in his car on purpose so that he could drive back across town an hour later to drop them off at her front door. She did not tell anybody that night what had happened in that small interaction. She was 16 years old. She was sitting on her bedroom floor with the takeout box on her lap, and she already, in some honest part of herself, knew. 24 years later, they are still picking each other. Welcome to the story. October 22nd, 2024, Crypto.com Arena, downtown Los Angeles, the Lakers and the Timberwolves, opening night of the season. A man named LeBron James, who is on the back end of his 22nd year as a professional basketball player, is sitting on the home bench with a rolled towel against the back of his neck, watching his oldest son walk out of the tunnel in a Lakers jersey for the first time. The boy's name is LeBron Jr. The whole world, including his parents, calls him Bronny. It is also Bronny's 20th birthday. The crowd is already on its feet. The arena horn sounds. Coach turns and points at the kid and tells him to go in. In the front row, a woman in a black turtleneck is crying. Her hands are folded in her lap. Her shoulders are not shaking. She is, by the strict standard of public composure, holding it together. But the tears are coming down her face in a steady line, and she is not wiping them. The man next to her, who is her brother-in-law, glances sideways and does not say anything. He has known her by this point for a full quarter of her life. He does not say anything because he knows that the wrong word, in this moment, will undo her entirely. He hands her a tissue. She takes it. She does not use it. She holds it in her fist. I want you to know, before this book starts, that the woman in the front row is the engine of this story. Not the man on the bench, not the boy at the scorer's table, the woman in the front row. Without her, the kid from Akron does not get to the bench. Without her, the boy at the scorer's table does not get a Lakers uniform. Without her, in the late summer of 2023, the boy at the scorer's table does not survive the Tuesday afternoon his heart stops on a USC practice court and the assistant trainer drops to his knees and starts compressions. Without her, the man who will, in about 90 seconds, walk past the scorer's table and tap his son on the chest and say to him on the open floor of an NBA arena in front of 19,000 people, "I love you, man. Go play." Without her, that sentence does not happen. I will tell you something nobody at home was supposed to see, but the cameras caught anyway. When Bronny crossed the half-court line to check in, the woman in the front row mouthed, very quietly, the word, "okay." She mouthed it not to her son. She mouthed it to herself. It was the word she had said on August 5th, 2004, sitting on the corner of an examination bed at Akron General, with a printout of a sonogram in her left hand and a Coke in her right, looking at the boy she had been dating for 2 years, the boy who had just been drafted first overall a couple of months before, and saying to him, very quietly, "Okay," as in, "Okay, I am going to do this with you," as in, "Okay, here we go." It was the word she said the night LeBron came home from his rookie road trip and found her sitting on the kitchen floor at 2 a.m. with the baby asleep against her chest and the dishwasher humming. "Okay," she said, when he asked her if she was all right. "Okay." It was a sentence and an answer and a promise all at the same time. It was the word she had said in the bathroom of a hotel in Coconut Grove in the summer of 2010, sitting on the cold tile when her phone rang and her mother was on the other end, and her mother said the words, "Cleveland is upset, baby. The whole city is upset. They are burning his jersey on television." And Savannah held the phone and said, "Only? Okay." Then she stood up. Then she went back out to the living room where the man she loved was sitting on the couch with his head in his hands. Then she sat down next to him. Then she put her hand on the back of his neck. "Okay," she said again. "Okay. We are okay." That word is the spine of this book. This is a love story. It begins, as most of the great ones do, in a city nobody outside of it pays much attention to. Part 1. Before. Chapter 1. Savannah, just a girl from Akron. I want to tell you something about Akron before I tell you anything about him. Akron is a small city. It is small in the way that the second-tier American river towns are small. There is a downtown. There is a stretch of working-class neighborhoods on the west side. And there is a stretch of working-class neighborhoods on the east side. There are tire factories that used to employ everybody, and that mostly do not anymore. There is a university that the rest of the country does not pay much attention to. There are about 190,000 people, and on a given Friday in October, an alarming number of them will be at a high school football game. That is the city I grew up in. That is the city the boy I am about to tell you about grew up in. We were both from there. We both still are. I went to Bucktel High School. He went to St. Vincent St. Mary, which is a small Catholic school across town, with a basketball team that, by the time I got to high school, every single person in Northeast Ohio had already heard of. I had not. Much. Or rather, I had heard of it the way you have heard of things that do not, on any given day of your life, concern you. I knew there was a kid named LeBron over there. I knew people talked about him. I knew somebody had told me, sophomore year, that the kid was going to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated as a junior, which sounded ridiculous to me at the time, because the only juniors I knew were boys who could not work the lock on their gym lockers without help. I was, in those years, a softball player. That sentence is the most useful thing I can give you about who I was at 16. I played second base. I had a swing that my coach called bunt mechanics dressed up as a swing. I was small. I was watchful. I was the kid in the dugout who, when somebody else struck out, did not say anything, did not roll her eyes, did not deliver a sermon, but did, on the way back to the bench, hand the bat back without making the strikeout the other girl's fault. I had been told by my mother, since I could walk, that the kindest thing you can do for a person is to not, in any moment of their failure, look at them. Look at the ground. Hand them the bat. Sit next to them. Wait. That is the Akron my mother raised me in. That is also, I will tell you now, the Akron the boy across town was being raised in, by a different woman with the same instincts. Neither of us figured out at the time that those two women had given us the same training. We figured it out about 10 years later, sitting on the floor of an apartment with a baby crying in the next room, when one of us picked the bat up and handed it to the other one without making the strikeout anybody's fault. The first time I saw him, I did not see him. That is the joke. I want to be honest about it. He was 6'8" by his junior year, and I was at a football game with my friends on a Friday night, and the boy that I would, 24 years later, marry, walked past me twice without registering on any part of my brain. He was wearing a green and gold St. Vincent St. Mary sweatshirt that to me was the uniform of the school I did not go to. He had 2 friends with him. I had 3 friends with me. We were all 16 and 17 years old. We were all, by every meaningful measure of the word, idiots. What happened, the way I remember it, is that one of his friends transferred over to Buchtel. The boy's name was Brandon, and Brandon and I had English together. One Tuesday afternoon, in the hallway between 6th and 7th period, Brandon stopped me and said, "Hey, my boy LeBron wanted me to ask you for your number. I want you to picture this scene." Brandon is 6 feet tall, sweating slightly, holding a notebook against his chest. I am standing with my back against a locker. I have a math binder under my arm. I am, in the present tense way teenagers are, certain that this is a setup. I said, no. I will take his number. That is the truest sentence in the first hour of this book. I want you to hear me say it again. No. I will take his number. I will tell you why I said it that way, and I am going to tell it to you the way I told it to my friend Lala about a decade later, which is the only way the story is true. I was not playing hard to get. I was not running game. I was a 16-year-old softball player with a 3.4 grade point average and a curfew of 9:45 on a school night. I just had no intention of being the kind of girl who handed out her number in a hallway to a basketball player she had never met. If he wanted to call me, he could call me. If he wanted me to call him, I could decide whether I would. Brandon laughed. He laughed because, in the small private accounting of everybody who went to Booktel that year, the answer I had just given him was the funniest possible answer I could have given. No. I will take his number. 6 words. The whole tenor of the next 24 years was set inside of those 6 words, and I did not know it. I was just trying to get to 7th period. I went home that night. I did not tell my mother. I did not tell my brother. I did not tell my friends. I sat on my bedroom floor with the slip of paper Brandon had handed me, and I looked at the 7 digits on it for about an hour, and I did not call. The next afternoon I called. He answered on the 3rd ring. His voice, on the other end of the line, was the voice of a boy who had been running drills for 2 hours and had not, until that exact second, sat down. He sounded surprised. He sounded happy. He sounded, in a way that I now know is the only way he has ever sounded since I have known him, like a person who, when something good happens, gets quiet. "Hi," he said. "Is this Savannah?" I said yes. He said, "I was hoping you would call." I said, "I was hoping I would too." We talked for an hour. We talked about nothing. We talked about whether his coach made him run too many drills. We talked about whether my coach made me run too many drills. Neither of us asked the other one out that night, on the phone. Neither of us said the word date. We just hung up about an hour and a half later, and I went to bed. Somewhere in the middle of that hour, in the small private accounting only my own self ever sees, I knew. I want to be careful with the word knew. I did not know it the way a romantic comedy says you know it. I did not know that we would have 3 kids, 2 NBA championships, a podcast, a foundation, a school in Akron, 2 homes, and a career that would take me away from the only city I had ever lived in, and then bring me back to it again. I knew it in the way, you know, when the bus pulls up at the corner, that the bus is yours. You can run for it, or you cannot, but the bus is yours. I ran for the bus. I will give you one more thing about that night, because I think the thing you keep from any moment is the small thing nobody else ever sees. Before I went to sleep, I picked up my softball glove from the corner of my bedroom and I rubbed the leather pocket with my thumb, the way I always did before a game. It was, to me, a way of saying, okay, here we go. I did not that night know what I was getting ready for. I just knew that something was coming. The pocket of that glove kept holding the shape of my thumb, the way it always did, the way it always had. That is the first thing I want you to know about me. I am Savannah. I am, in any present tense accounting of me, just a girl from Akron. That sentence is the floor of my entire life. I will say it again at the end of this book. I will say it after I am married. I will say it after I have 3 children. I will say it after I am called, on magazine covers, by a last name that is not mine. I will say it in the kitchen of a house I never imagined I would live in, on a Sunday morning, with my husband on his 2nd coffee, looking at me across the marble island and grinning because he has been listening to me say it for 24 years. I am Savannah. I am just a girl from Akron. Here is what happened next. Chapter 2. LeBron, a kid from Northeast Ohio. She did not know who I was. I want you to sit with that for a minute before I tell you anything else, because that sentence is the entire reason this book is the kind of book a friend will text another friend about, and not the kind of book that gets put in the basketball section at Barnes and Noble. She did not know who I was. By the time I was a junior at St. Vincent St. Mary, I had been on the cover of Sports Illustrated. I had had grown men, not boys, men, drive in from Cincinnati and Pittsburgh on a Tuesday night to watch me play a high school basketball game. I had had a college scout follow me into a Wendy's bathroom in Akron in October of 2002 to give me his card while I was washing my hands. I am not making this up. He waited. He stood by the dryer. He was not embarrassed. I was 16. I had a hand under the dryer, and I had a card from a college scout in the other hand, and I had a chicken sandwich on the counter outside, and I was certain at that moment that the world had, for me, gone slightly insane. And then I called a girl from Buchtel on a Tuesday afternoon, and that girl did not, at any point in the conversation, tell me that she had been waiting for me to call. That girl talked to me about whether her coach made her run too many drills. That girl asked me, 20 minutes in, if I had finished my history homework. That girl, a few weeks later, when I asked her on a date, asked me where we were going. Not, what are we doing? Not, what should I wear? Where we were going. As in, give me an address, big man, so I can plan my evening. I want to tell you what that did to me. I had been by that point treated like a basketball player by everybody in my entire life. By my coaches, by my teammates, by my cousins, by my mama's friends, by the cashier at the gas station on Copley Road, by the woman who owned the pizza place across from school, by the priest who taught my religion class, by the security guard at the front of the building, by the principal, by the assistant principal, by the high school counselor, whose only piece of advice to me in the spring of my junior year was, son, do not screw this up. By every single grown person in Northeast Ohio in the year 2002, I was a basketball player first and a kid second. Savannah, on the phone that Tuesday afternoon, treated me like a kid first. She had no idea I was a basketball player. I want to be honest with you. I have, in every interview I have ever done about her, said roughly the same sentence. I said it on Oprah in 2012. I said it on the bus to a road game in 2017. I said it to Lee Jenkins in a Sports Illustrated piece in 2014, and we did not put it in the article, but I said it to him in the cab on the way over. I said it on the Netflix camera, in the kitchen of a Brentwood house, in the spring of 2024. Every time the sentence is the same. She did not know who I was, and that is the reason it worked. I will give you the picture of the kid she did not know. I lived at that time in a small 2-bedroom apartment off Hickory Street in Akron with my mother, Gloria. My mother was, then and now, the toughest woman I have ever met. She had me at 16. By the time I was 4, we had moved 12 different times between apartments, family members' couches, and a Section 8 unit that, in 1991, had an entire floor with no working heat. My mama in those years did everything wrong by the standards of an outside observer with a clipboard, and everything right by the only standard that mattered to me, which is that, at the end of every single day, I knew without asking that she would lay her body down on a railroad track for me. I knew it. I know it now. I will know it on the last day I am alive. Mama loves me. That was the floor of my entire life. The other thing about my mama is she had a gift for short sentences. Be the same boy on Tuesday that you are on Sunday. That is one of hers. If you would not say it in front of me, do not say it on the bus. That is also hers. A man who cannot dance with his wife on her birthday is not a man. I will let her have that one without comment. The point I want to make is that my mama gave me the language I used in those early calls with Savannah when I could not, in any way, find the words for what I was actually trying to say. Just be the same boy on Tuesday that you are on Sunday. That sentence rang in my head the night I called her back to ask her on the first date. And I did not roll out the basketball player. I asked her about her softball season. I asked her about her math class. I asked her where she wanted to go. I tried to be the boy I was on a Sunday, the same boy, not the boy on the cover of the magazine, the boy in the apartment off Hickory Street. That sentence kept doing its work in me for years. I asked her on a date the second week of October. She said yes. We agreed on Outback Steakhouse, which, I want you to understand, was at that time in Northeast Ohio, the apex of a teenager's first date budget. There was a Saturday night Outback in Akron with a hostess who I had been told by my friend Brandon would seat us in a back booth if I asked nicely. I called the day before to confirm the booth. I am not going to tell you that I had the maturity of a 20-year-old at that point. I had the maturity of a 16-year-old who had watched too many movies. I planned the meal the way a 16-year-old plans the meal. I picked her up at her mother's house in a car that did not entirely belong to me. I rang the doorbell. I shook her mother's hand. I called her mother ma'am. "Where are we going?" she said, as we pulled out of the driveway. "Outback," I said. "Outback Steakhouse on Arlington," she said. "Yes," I said. "Okay," she said. "I am, by my own admission, not picky, but I will tell you now, if I can, that I do not eat a bloomin' onion. So order something else and I will share." I want you to hear that line in the voice of a 16-year-old girl from Buchtel, with one foot up on the dashboard, holding her purse on her lap, looking out the window. I, the kid from Akron, was, in that moment, falling. Not in love. I was not yet in love. I was falling, in the way a 16-year-old boy falls, into the soft territory of being teased by a girl who was, on her own scale, willing to be teased back. I laughed. I will not lie. I laughed for about a quarter of a mile. "Okay," I said. "No bloomin' onion. What about the cheese fries?" "The cheese fries are the only acceptable Outback appetizer," she said. "I will not, on my own life, allow you to order anything else." I laughed again. We pulled into the parking lot at 6:45 in the evening on a Saturday in October in the year 2002. I want to tell you something that, until this book, I have only ever said inside the four walls of my own kitchen. I was scared. I was scared in the way a 16-year-old is scared, which is to say, lightly, and on the surface, and gladly. I was scared because I had, for the first time in 2 years of being a public basketball player, met a person whose opinion of me I cared about. And that person had no idea what my J-look was, and if I had explained it to her, she would have told me to slow down and order the cheese fries. The bloomin' onion, by the way, has been, in the 24 years since, a running joke in our entire family. I will get to it again. There is a dinner in the summer of 2024 at a steakhouse in Brentwood, where one of our kids, who I will let you guess which one, orders one in front of his mother, and his mother gives him a look that I last saw across a Booktel cafeteria in 2003. I will tell you that story when I get to it. For now, I will tell you only that I did not order the bloomin' onion. I ordered the cheese fries. She was right, and she has for the entire 24 years of my adult life kept being right. That is the first thing I want you to know about me. I am LeBron. I am a kid from Northeast Ohio. I had a son before I had a wife. I had a wife before I had a championship. I had a championship before I had the language to say what any of it meant. I learned the language slowly, on the phone with the same girl I had called from the floor of my mother's kitchen, on a Tuesday in October, in the year 2002. I am still learning. The kid from Akron kept calling the girl from Akron, and the girl from Akron kept picking up. Here is what happened next. Chapter 3. Savannah, Outback Steakhouse, October 2002. He came back for the leftovers. I will give you the story. We had dinner. It was fine. It was better than fine. He was the same boy on the date that he had been on the phone, which was the only thing I had wanted to verify, and which is, to this day, the test I run on every man I meet, for myself or for any niece who calls me asking about a boy. Is he the same on the date as he is on the phone? If yes, give it 3 more weeks. If no, leave the parking lot in your own car. I learned that test that night at Outback Steakhouse on Arlington in October of 2002. I have used it on every relationship I have ever evaluated since. He drove me home around 9:30. He walked me to the door. He did not, at the door, try anything ridiculous. He shook my hand. I want you to picture that. We had been on a 2-hour first date, eaten cheese fries, talked about our mothers, talked about whether his teammate Romeo was going to commit to Akron, and at the end of it, the kid who would, 20 months later, be the first overall pick of the NBA draft, shook my hand at my mother's front door. "Good night, Savannah," he said. "I had a great time." "Good night," I said. He got in the car. He drove away. I went inside. I climbed the stairs. I put my purse on the bed. I sat down on the floor with my back against the bed, the way I always did when I needed to think, and I looked at the carpet for about 2 minutes. I do not know how to explain those 2 minutes to anybody who has not been a 16-year-old girl on the floor of her own bedroom on a Saturday night. I was not yet in love. I was something earlier than in love. I was the way you are when somebody hands you a puzzle box and you have not yet tried to open it, holding the box in my lap. The doorbell rang. I will tell you what my first thought was. My first thought was, who is at the door at 9:40 in the evening? My mother is going to lose her mind. My second thought was, please God, do not let it be him. Because if it is him, I do not know what to do with that. My third thought was, please God, do let it be him. Because if it is, I will know something I do not currently know. I went down the stairs. I opened the door. He was on the porch. He was holding a styrofoam Outback Steakhouse takeout container. He looked, I want to say in his defense, slightly embarrassed. "You forgot your leftovers," he said. "I did not forget my leftovers," I said. "They were yours." Yeah, he said. Yeah. I thought you might want them. LeBron, I said. Yeah, he said. Did you drive across town to bring me leftovers? Yeah, he said. LeBron, I said again. Did you keep the leftovers in your car on purpose? Yeah, he said. I want you to understand the moment. I want you to picture me, 16 years old, in a sweatshirt, with my hair in a bun, holding the front door open with my hip, looking at a 6'8" high school junior who had just driven, by my count, 11 minutes across the city of Akron with a takeout container of cheese fries in order to manufacture, with absolutely no plausible cover, an excuse to come back to the front porch and see me again. I want you to know that until that moment, I had thought he was sweet and earnest, and that he might, with a year of seasoning, become the kind of boy I would consider going to a homecoming dance with. I had not, at any point in the previous 3 hours, thought that he was, at the bone, a romantic. He was a romantic. I want to tell you also that I almost laughed in his face. I want to be specific about that. I almost laughed, not in cruelty, but in the way you laugh when the universe walks up to you and does an absurd thing right in front of you, and you cannot, in any decent way, pretend you did not see it. I was holding the door for an eternity longer than I should have been. I was, in the small private accounting of my entire life, deciding whether to give myself permission to want this boy. I gave myself permission. Come in, I said. My mama is asleep. We will eat the cheese fries in the kitchen. If you wake her up, you are leaving on foot. He laughed. He came in. He took his shoes off in the entry. He followed me into the kitchen. We sat at the breakfast counter, which was the same breakfast counter I had eaten cereal at every morning of my life since I was 4 years old. I opened the styrofoam container. I gave him a fork. I took a fork. We ate the cold cheese fries off the same container in my mother's kitchen at 9:50 on a Saturday night in October 2002. We did not turn on the kitchen light. We used the under cabinet bulb, because if you turned on the overhead, my mother's bedroom was right above us, and the light bled through the floor. He stayed for 54 minutes. I know, because I looked at the microwave clock when he left. When he closed the front door, my mother, who had not been asleep, called from the top of the stairs, "Savannah Renee." "Yes, ma'am," I said. "Was there a boy in my kitchen?" "Yes, ma'am," I said. "A boy who came back at 10 in the evening with leftovers from a meal he ate with you 3 hours earlier." "Yes, ma'am," I said. "Was the boy LeBron James?" I want to tell you that for a sliver of a second I almost said who. The joke would have killed her. She would have come down the stairs and physically taken me out of the kitchen. "Yes, ma'am," I said. There was a pause. I could hear my mother thinking. I could hear, in the architecture of the silence, the entire next 24 years of my life. "All right," my mother said. "Go to bed, Savannah." "Yes, ma'am," I said. I went to bed. I lay on my back. I looked at the ceiling. I thought about the boy who had driven cold cheese fries across town to put a fork in my mother's kitchen at 9:50 in the evening. I thought about him for about 3 minutes. Then I fell asleep. I slept the way I had not slept in a year. The under-cabinet light kept its small pool of yellow on the kitchen counter, even after I had gone upstairs, because I had forgotten to turn it off. The kitchen kept the warmth of him. I did not call him the next morning. He called me. He called me at 10:15 on Sunday, an hour earlier than would have been polite, with a question about my softball schedule that he could have asked me on Monday at school if we had gone to the same school, which we did not. I picked up on the second ring. I was awake. I had been waiting. I will not pretend I had not been waiting. That is the thing about a love story, and especially this love story. The girl waits. She does not always tell anyone she is waiting. She does not always tell herself she is waiting. But the body knows. The body sits down on the bedroom floor at 9:30 on a Saturday night and looks at the carpet for 2 minutes. And the body waits, and the body answers, and the body kept doing its honest work the entire time without my permission. Here is what happened next. Chapter 4. LeBron, Bucktle Football, Fridays. I will tell you a thing nobody asked. I went to her football games. I want you to picture this. I was, by the spring of my junior year, a top 5 recruit in the country at every level of the game. I had, by Christmas of my senior year, reporters from Los Angeles in the parking lot of St. Vincent St. Mary asking me questions in my coach's office. I had, in the cafeteria, a teacher who had been my Sunday school teacher when I was 9 years old, asking me to sign her son's basketball. I had a life. In the autumn and winter of 2002 and 2003, that made it almost impossible to sit in a high school football bleacher on a Friday night, in a hoodie and a baseball cap, without somebody recognizing me and walking over. I went anyway. I wore the hoodie. I pulled the cap low. I sat by myself 2 rows from the top, on the visitor's side, where the Bucktle kids were, because that was where she was. I watched the football game with one eye and watched her with the other. I want to be clear about what I was watching. I was not watching her in any creepy way. I was watching her in the way a kid who has, for the first time in his life, a girl he wants to date, watches the girl he wants to date, when he is not yet allowed to come over and put his arm around her in front of her friends. I was watching her in the way a kid sitting 2 rows up watches a girl 2 rows down, because the only seat his pride will allow him to take is 2 rows up, but the only seat he wants is 2 rows down, and the math is the math of a teenage boy who is in deeper than he has admitted to himself. She knew I was there. She did not turn around. That is the part of the story I want you to remember. I knew she knew. She knew I knew she knew. Neither of us said anything about it for about 3 weeks. We were, the way only 16 and 17-year-olds are, playing chess inside of a high school football game. I want to give you the moment one of those 3 weeks broke. It was Buchtel and East, late October. I was wearing a St. Vincent St. Mary practice hoodie, which in plain hindsight was not a great choice, but I had not thought it through. The score was 21-14 Buchtel. The 4th quarter was running down. There was a kid, a senior, sitting 2 rows below me, who turned around at one point in the 3rd quarter and said very quietly, "Yo, are you LeBron James?" "No," I said. "Yeah, you are," he said. "No, I am not," I said. "Bro, you are LeBron," he said. I will not pretend I am proud of what I did next. I, the future first overall pick of the NBA draft, looked at this 17-year-old kid in a Buchtel sweatshirt, deadpan, and I said, "I am his cousin, Larry." The kid stared at me. I stared at the kid. The kid blinked twice. "Bro," he said. "Bro, you are not Larry." I held the bit. I held it for about another 20 seconds. Then I broke. I laughed. I laughed in the way you laugh when you have, in front of an audience of 1, attempted a stupid joke that you know is not going to land, and the joke does not land, and the absurdity of having tried it lands instead. "Yeah, man," I said. "I am LeBron." The kid grinned. He did not, to his credit, ask for an autograph. He just very calmly turned around and went back to watching the game. What I did not know at the time was that Savannah, in row 2, had heard the whole thing, because the cousin I had just claimed to be was named after her uncle. Apparently, in the small private accounting of every Akron family, there is, somewhere, a Larry. There was a Larry in her family. There was, somewhere, a Larry in mine. The kid 2 rows up, claiming to be Larry, was a 16-year-old boy attempting a joke about his own identity that, by the math of every other Larry in Northeast Ohio, was statistically guaranteed to crack open within 90 seconds. She had, on the bottom row, allowed herself to laugh. Not loud, not in front of her friends. She had laughed into her own elbow, the way a 16-year-old girl who has been told her whole life not to laugh out loud at boys laughs. She turned around. She caught my eye. She mouthed the word, Larry. I want you to know what that did to me. I had, by that point in my life, been on stages, in arenas, on the cover of magazines, in front of cameras. I had been told, by every coach I had ever had, that the most important thing about being a great player is the ability to stay calm in a high-pressure moment. I had, by my own honest accounting, been, until that fall Friday in Akron, Ohio, a relatively calm kid. The girl mouthed the word Larry at me, from 2 rows down, and I felt the inside of my chest fall through the bleachers and onto the football field below. I did not respond. I gave her what I can only describe in hindsight as a tiny nod. I want to say it was cool. It was not cool. I am sure, on the videotape, if there were one, it would look like a 16-year-old boy who had just been hit in the chest by a brick. She turned back around. She watched the rest of the game. After the game, she came up the bleachers with 2 of her friends. The friends pretended to be looking at something on the field. She stopped 1 row below me. She smiled. Larry, she said. Yes, ma'am, I said. Thursday, she said. I have a softball banquet on Thursday. Come, I will come, I said. Wear a tie, she said. I will not pretend I owned a tie. I went to my mother that night. I sat on the kitchen floor, the way I always did when I had something serious to ask my mother, and I said, Ma, I need a tie. My mother did not have a tie. My mother, however, had a friend named Eddie Jackson, who had been around our family since I was a kid, and who, at her request, drove over the next morning with 3 ties of his own, laid them on our kitchen counter, and said, Son, the green one is for funerals, the navy one is for interviews, the burgundy one is for your girlfriend's banquet. I want you to know that I took the burgundy. I tied it the night before in my mother's bathroom mirror while my mother stood in the doorway with her arms crossed and laughed at me for a good 15 minutes. You cannot tie a tie, baby, she said. You are 6'8" and you cannot tie a tie. I will learn, I said. My mother said. She came over. She tied it for me. She straightened it. She kissed me on the forehead. Same boy on Tuesday that you are on Sunday, she said. Yes, ma'am, I said. Now go to her banquet, son. Do not embarrass me. Yes, ma'am, I said. I did not embarrass her. I sat in a folding chair in the Booktel cafeteria on a Thursday in October 2002 in a burgundy tie that I did not own and could not, watching a softball banquet I had absolutely no business at, while a girl I had been on 1 date with received a small wooden plaque for being the most improved second baseman in her conference, and walked back to her seat carrying the plaque and a small, awkward smile. and looked across the cafeteria at me and very softly mouthed, "Thank you, Larry." My chest, the same chest that had fallen through the bleachers 2 weeks earlier, fell through the floor of the cafeteria and out onto the parking lot. I will tell you the truth. I knew that Thursday night, sitting in the folding chair in Eddie Jackson's burgundy tie, watching her walk back to her seat with that plaque, that I was going to marry her. I did not say it out loud. I did not say it for years. I did not say it until I was 27 years old and on the deck of the Shelbourne Hotel in Miami Beach on the night of December 31st, 2011, with a ring in my pocket and a 6-year-old son and a 4-year-old son back at the house with their grandmother. But I knew it on a Thursday night in a high school cafeteria in Akron, Ohio, when I was 16, and I have kept knowing it every single Thursday since. The burgundy tie kept its honest knot in the small private accounting of my closet for years. Here is what happened next. Chapter 5. Savannah, the night my mama said no. I want to tell you about the only night my mother ever said no. The first 6 months, my mother liked him. She thought he was polite. She thought he was respectful. She thought he was the kind of boy who, on a Sunday afternoon, could be sent up the stairs to the attic to look for a Christmas decoration without supervision. And she would not have to worry about a single thing in the box getting broken. She thought he was a good Akron boy. She had grown up around good Akron boys. She knew what they looked like. She liked him. She did not in any way think I was going to marry him. I want to be honest about that. She thought I was going to college. She thought I was going to be the first person in our immediate family to get a 4-year degree. She thought I was going to study, probably business, and probably somewhere within driving distance of her kitchen. She had, in the way mothers do, plans for me. She had the same plans for me that her own mother had had for her, that her own mother had not been able to finish because of life, and that she, as a result, had carried forward, the way you carry forward a small, unbroken piece of your own mother's hopes for you. She wanted me to finish college. She wanted me to wait until I was 25 to get married. She wanted me to wait until I was 27 to have a baby. I was not going to do any of those things. I want to tell you the night she found out. It was August 4th, 2004. I was 18 years old. I had been with him for about 18 months. He had, 2 months earlier, been the first overall pick of the NBA draft by the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he had, by August, already moved into a townhouse in suburban Cleveland and was a man for the first time in his life. I had, by the second week of June, started feeling tired in a way I had not ever, in 18 years of my life, been tired. I had, known for about 6 weeks. I had not gone to a doctor. I had instead gone to a Walgreens on Arlington at 10 in the morning on a Tuesday, with a baseball cap and sunglasses, and I had bought the kind of test that you take in a Walgreens bathroom stall before you put your hands on your knees and breathe. The test came back the way I already knew it was going to come back. I called him. I did not, at first, tell him on the phone. I drove out to the townhouse. He met me in the driveway. He saw my face. He did not ask. He said, "Come in, baby. Sit down." We sat on the couch in the living room of a townhouse he did not yet have the furniture to fill. He looked at me. "Tell me," he said. "I am pregnant," I said. He sat with it for maybe a count of 6. Then he stood up. Then he walked into the kitchen. Then he walked back. Then he sat down. Then he put his hand on my knee. Then he said, "Okay." Then he said it again. "Okay. We are going to be okay." Then he said the third thing, which is the only thing I have ever needed any man in my life to say to me. He said, "I am with you. Whatever you decide, I am with you. I will tell you what I had been afraid of. In the 7 days I had been holding the test result. I had been afraid that he was going to ask me what I wanted to do. I had been afraid that he was going to give me a list of options. I had been afraid that he was going to, in that subtle and common and not unkind way men sometimes do, hand the decision back to me with a nod that said, "Whatever you choose is fine." I had not been afraid that he would leave. I had been afraid that he would not stay. He stayed. He stayed in the way a kid from Akron who had been raised by a single mother stays. He stayed in the way a boy whose own father had not stayed stays. He stayed not as a question, but as an answer. We drove to my mother's house that night. He sat in the driver's seat. I sat in the passenger seat. I held my own hands. He did not let me speak first. He walked into the kitchen. He sat across from my mother at the breakfast counter, which was the same breakfast counter where, 2 years earlier, the two of us had eaten cold cheese fries at 9:50 on a Saturday night. He took his cap off. He put his hands on the counter. He said, "Ma'am, I want you to know I love your daughter. I want you to know I am going to take care of her and our baby, and I am going to do it for as long as I am alive. I want you to know also that I do not have, at the moment, the language to ask you for what I am going to need to ask you for. I will get the language, but for tonight, I am going to ask you plainly to give me your blessing." My mother did not cry. I want you to know this about my mother. She did not cry. She did not raise her voice. She did not hit the counter. She did not do a single one of the small dramatic things a younger person, watching from the side, might have expected. She listened. Then she reached across the counter and she took my left hand. She did not take his. She took mine. "Savannah," my mother said. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "Are you sure?" my mother said. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "Are you sure that this is the man?" my mother said. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "Look at me, baby," my mother said. "Look at me. Are you sure?" I looked at her. I looked at her in a way I had not looked at my mother since I had been a small child sitting on her lap on the porch on a summer evening when I was 4 years old, and a thunderstorm had been coming in from the west, and I had been afraid of the thunder. "Are you sure?" my mother had said then. "Are you sure you are not afraid?" "Yes, ma'am," I had said. "I am sure." "Then why are you holding onto my arm so hard?" my mother had said. I had laughed. I had not had an answer then. I did not entirely have an answer now. But I said, "Yes, Mama, I am sure." My mother held my hand for a long time. She did not let go. She looked at LeBron. She looked at him for what felt like a full hour. He held her gaze the entire time. He did not blink. "LeBron," my mother said. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "If you ever do not stay," my mother said, "I will find you." "Yes, ma'am," he said. "I will find you in the city of Cleveland or the city of Miami or the city of Los Angeles or the city of any other place in the world that you have run to, and I will not leave that city without bringing you back here, to this kitchen, to my daughter." "Yes, ma'am," he said. "Do you understand me, son?" "Yes, ma'am," he said. My mother nodded. She let go of my hand. She stood up. She walked to the refrigerator. She opened it. She got out a Coke. She handed me the Coke. "You will drink this Coke, Savannah Renee," she said. "Then we will say a small prayer. Then we will sit down at this counter, the three of us, and we will start to plan." We did. We sat at the counter. We started to plan. The townhouse in Cleveland would be the first stop. Akron General would be the hospital. My mother would, in the most generous and clear-eyed way a mother can, drive up to Cleveland on Tuesdays and Fridays for the first 6 months of my pregnancy to make me oatmeal and to fold the small, impossibly tiny baby clothes my aunt had already sent over. We would not, in any way, get married yet. "You are too young," my mother said. "He is too young." "Yes, ma'am," I said. "You will marry him," my mother said, "only when both of you are sure that the marrying is not, in any way, the chasing of a baby." "Yes, ma'am," I said. We did not get married for 9 more years. My mother kept her own honest counsel. The Coke kept its small fizz on the kitchen counter between her right hand and mine until I drank it. Here is what happened next. Part 2. Building. Chapter 6. LeBron, Akron General, October 6th, 2004. The night Bronny was born, I was a rookie. I want you to sit with that. I was 19 years old. I had played, by that night, exactly 7 preseason games of professional basketball. I had not won a single regular season game in my life. I had not won a single game, period, in the NBA. I was at the bottom of every list. I was, by the strict accounting of every sports bar conversation in the country, the most overhyped teenager in American basketball. A kid from Akron who had been on the cover of Sports Illustrated as a junior and was probably going to flame out. I had not, on my entire body, a single tattoo that said husband, father, or anything close. I had a tattoo that said Chosen One on my upper back that I had gotten the previous summer in plain teenage hubris. The artist had let me do it. He should not have. I am not making this up. That tattoo was the kid I was on the morning of October 5th, 2004. The man Savannah pulled into Akron General Hospital that night was, by the next morning, somebody slightly different. We had driven down from Cleveland that afternoon. Her water had broken at 3 in the afternoon, in the kitchen of the townhouse, while she was making a sandwich. I want you to picture her. She was 18. She was barefoot. She was wearing one of my t-shirts, because by the 8th month of pregnancy, the woman is wearing the man's t-shirt, and the man is wearing whatever else is left in the closet. She was making turkey on white. She had laid out the lettuce. She had laid out the mayo. She had laid out the sliced American cheese. She had a knife in her hand. She turned around and she said, very quietly, "Baby, we need to go." I had been on the couch watching Sports Center. I want to be honest with you. I did not know what was happening. I said, "Go where?" She said, "Baby, the baby. We need to go." I want you to know what I did next, because it is the kind of thing a kid from Northeast Ohio does, and not the kind of thing a Sports Center hosts about. I picked up the sandwich. I wrapped it in a paper towel. I put it in a Ziploc bag. I put the Ziploc bag in the side pocket of the duffel we had packed 3 weeks earlier, because I had not eaten lunch yet, and a man who has not eaten lunch should not, in my mother's expressed opinion, drive a woman to the hospital. I picked up the duffel. I picked up the keys. I helped her into the car. I drove the speed limit. I did not run a single light. She, in the passenger seat, was, by the second mile, laughing at me. "You brought the sandwich," she said. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "You brought the entire sandwich," she said. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "In a Ziploc?" "Yes, ma'am." "LeBron?" "Yes, ma'am." "Are you going to eat that sandwich while I am giving birth to our son?" "Maybe," I said. I did not eat the sandwich. I want to clear that up for the record. We made it to Akron General at 4:40 in the afternoon. My mother was already there because my mother had, 3 weeks earlier, set up an entire system in which any phone call from Savannah, day or night, would result in my mother being at Akron General within 45 minutes, no matter what. My mother was 16 years old when I was born, and she had, by her own honest accounting, not had her own mother in the room. She was not by any measure going to allow my child to be born without his grandmother in the room. There were, in our delivery room, 8 people. There were 2 nurses. There was a doctor. There was Savannah, of course. There was me, awkwardly 6'8" in a chair I was too big for. There was Savannah's mother on one side of the bed. There was my mother on the other side. There was, in the corner, my friend Maverick, who had driven down from Cleveland because he was, by then, the closest thing I had to a brother, and who had become the unofficial second man in our family before either of us had the language for what that meant. Maverick stood in the corner of the room with a Walmart bag full of granola bars and bottled water, in the small private accounting of a man who has decided, on his own, that the only thing he can offer is to be present. The labor was long. I want you to know this about my wife. She does not, in any moment of physical pain, perform. She does not yell. She does not even cry out. She holds her own breath. She closes her eyes. She squeezes the hand of whoever is closest. She did, that night, almost break 2 of my fingers. She did it without saying a word. The nurse came over at one point and said very softly, "Baby, you can yell. We have heard worse." Savannah, in the small private accounting of being a girl from Accra, whose mother had taught her not to yell, did not yell. She did, however, look at the nurse in the middle of a contraction and say, very dryly, "I will. Save the yelling for the bill." I want you to picture me at that moment. I, the rookie, the kid from Akron, the boy with the chosen one tattoo, was on the verge of crying because my 18-year-old girlfriend had just delivered, deadpan, the funniest line of my entire life in the middle of a contraction. I almost lost it. I held it together. I held it together because I'd been told by my mother 3 days earlier that under no circumstances was I to cry in front of Savannah while she was in labor. "You can cry," my mother had said, "when she is asleep. Until then, you stand next to her and you hold her hand and you keep your face like you have already done this before." I tried. The nurse looked at Savannah for a long second. The nurse almost laughed. The nurse turned around and went back to whatever the nurse was doing. LeBron Jr. was born at 11:42 in the evening on October 6th, 2004. He weighed 7 pounds and 2 ounces. The doctor put him on his mother's chest. His mother held him. His mother looked at him. His mother, the same girl who had sat on the floor of her bedroom in October 2002, looked at our son. She did not cry. She did, however, finally close her eyes for the first time in 14 hours. She put her cheek down on the top of his head. She breathed in. She held it. My mother was crying. Her mother was crying. Maverick in the corner was crying. I was the only person in the room not crying, not because I am tougher than they are, but because, in the way that 19-year-old boys sometimes are, I was, at that moment, locked inside my own chest. I was looking at the small, dark head of my son on the chest of the 18-year-old girl from Bucktle. I had been writing on the cover of my notebook for 2 years, and I was not capable of crying. I did, however, walk over. I did, however, kneel down. I did, however, put my hand on his back. He was on her chest, on my hand, smaller than the inside of a high school basketball. "Hi, baby," I said. He did not respond. He was newborn. "Hi, baby," I said again. "I am your daddy. I will tell you everything I know. I want you to know I had one piece of language for him in that moment, and I had taken it from my mother." I leaned down. I whispered, very quietly, "Be the same boy on Tuesday that you are on Sunday." It was the only thing I knew. I told it to him. He did not hear. He was asleep against his mother. The kid kept doing his honest work on her chest, the way he has, kept doing it for 20 years, every Tuesday and every Sunday, since. My mother came over. She put her hand on the back of my neck. She did not say anything. She squeezed. She let go. She walked over to the bed. She bent down. She kissed Savannah's forehead. "Baby," my mother said, "you did so good." Savannah, very quietly, with her cheek still on top of our son's head, said, "Thank you, Mama Glow. I want you to know what that did to me." That sentence, "Thank you, Mama Glow," with a baby on her chest and the room full of women, was the moment I knew that I had not married Savannah Brinson, but Savannah Brinson and Gloria James and Wanda Brinson had, on their own, in the kitchen of 2 different houses on 2 different sides of Akron, over the course of the 18 previous months, married each other. I had been a passenger. The Coke can on the table next to the bed kept its condensation on the small white napkin it was sitting on, until somebody came over and threw it out. Here is what happened next. Chapter 7. Savannah, a rookie with a son. We brought him home to a townhouse with no curtains. I want you to picture our first home. It was a 3-bedroom unit in a development outside Cleveland that LeBron's agent had picked the previous summer because it was 12 minutes from the practice facility. It was the kind of suburban development where every house looked the same and the streets were named after trees. And on the morning we drove home from the hospital, with Bronny in the car seat in the back, and my mother and his mother both following in their own separate cars, I did not, for 45 seconds, recognize which house was ours. I had never, before that summer, lived outside of Akron. I had not packed for the move. I had not picked the curtains. I had not picked the couch. I had picked, by the time we drove home from the hospital with our son, exactly one piece of furniture in the entire townhouse, and it was the rocking chair in the nursery, which I had in the 8th month of pregnancy, ordered from a small store in Akron my mother liked. The rocking chair was, by the end of the first month of Bronny's life, the only piece of furniture in that townhouse I knew how to operate. I sat in it. I rocked. I held him. LeBron, in the meantime, was in a different city 6 nights a week. I do not want to tell this part of the story as a complaint, because it was not, at the time, a complaint. The NBA is the NBA. He had a job. The job was 82 regular season games, plus 4 to 7 preseason games, plus, if everything went well, 16 to 24 playoff games. The job had taken his life over before our son had taken it over. He flew out on a Sunday night. He flew back on a Friday afternoon. He was a husband-shaped absence in our house. 6 days out of 7. I was 18. I want to tell you what nobody told me about being a teenage mother of an NBA player's son in suburban Cleveland in 2004. I want to tell you that by the 3rd week, the loneliness was the loneliness of a small lake at 5 in the morning. There was nobody to call who would understand. There was no other person in the country that fall who had a baby that was both an infant and the first overall pick's son. The other rookies' wives in the league were 5 and 10 years older than I was. The veterans' wives did not, by their own polite distance, fully invite me in. I had on my entire phone 3 phone numbers I would have called at 3 in the morning, and one of them was my mother in Akron, and the other 2 were his mother and his godmother, both of whom were also in Akron. I was in suburban Cleveland with a baby and a townhouse and a husband in Atlanta or Houston or Sacramento, and I was learning to be a mother by myself. I did the only thing I knew how to do. I put oatmeal on the stove every morning at 5:30. The oatmeal was the structure. The oatmeal told me what time it was. I would, in those weeks, put Bronny in a carrier on my chest, walk down to the kitchen in my socks, put a saucepan on the stove, pour in the oats, pour in the milk, and stir, very slowly, with a wooden spoon, while the small kitchen window slowly turned from black to gray to gold. The oatmeal was the only thing I, by my own admission, knew how to make from scratch. My mother had taught me when I was 9 years old. She had said, "If you can make a pot of oatmeal, baby, you can run a household." I had laughed. I had not then believed her. I, by the 3rd week of Bronny's life, in a suburban Cleveland kitchen with no curtains, believed her. The oatmeal kept its small, slow steam on the front burner every morning until the baby was 3 months old. I will tell you the night I called his mother and cried. It was a Tuesday in November. He was on the road in Phoenix. I had been alone in the townhouse with the baby for 4 days. The baby had not slept more than 2 hours at a stretch in any of those 4 days. I had not slept more than 90 minutes on top of him in any of those nights. I was, by Tuesday afternoon, walking around the kitchen barefoot, in a robe, with a 4-year-old's worth of fatigue. I dropped a small glass jar of pureed bananas that the lactation nurse had given me on the kitchen tile. The jar shattered. There was banana on the floor. There was glass in the banana. The baby, on my chest, woke up. The baby cried. The dog, who was a small mixed breed I had inherited from my mother, came running into the kitchen and almost stepped in the glass. I sat down on the kitchen floor in the middle of the spilled banana with the baby on my chest, and I picked up my phone and I called Gloria James. She answered on the 2nd ring. "Baby," she said. "Baby, what is wrong?" "Mama Glow," I said. "I am at the end of myself. Tell me, baby." "I am sitting on a kitchen floor," I said, "in suburban Cleveland, with a 4-week-old, and a banana jar I broke, and a dog, and I have not slept, and I have not washed my hair in 5 days." "Where is the baby?" she said. "The baby is on my chest." "Is the baby alive?" "Yes, ma'am," I said. "Are you alive?" "Yes, ma'am," I said. "Then, baby," my mother-in-law said, "you are doing it." "Mama Glow," I said, "I am. Not sure I am cut out for this." There was a pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. I could hear in the background a kettle. My mother-in-law had, in any kitchen, a kettle on. I could hear, in the architecture of the silence, the entire next 20 years of my life. Savannah, my mother-in-law, said, "Yes, ma'am," I said. "Listen to me, baby. You are not supposed to be cut out for this. Nobody in this country is cut out for this. There is no woman of any age who is cut out for being 18 years old in a townhouse in suburban Cleveland with a baby on her chest and a rookie husband in Phoenix. The cutting out, baby, is the doing." "Mama Glow," I said. "Yes, baby. Will you? Come up tomorrow." "I will be there at 9 in the morning," my mother-in-law said. She was. She drove up from Akron at 6:30 in the morning, which is what she always did when I needed her, and which she has kept doing for 20 years. She walked into my kitchen. She did not hug me first. She put a kettle on. She made me tea. She picked up the broken banana jar. She wiped the floor. She washed the dog's paw. She took the baby off my chest. She put me in the rocking chair. She put the baby in my arms. "Sit," she said. "Rock. I am not going to talk to you. I am going to sit on the couch and watch Wendy Williams. You will rock. You will not get up." I rocked. I did not get up. I, by 10:30 in the morning, fell asleep in a rocking chair with my son in my arms. Mama Glow took him out of my arms. I slept for 4 hours. That is the last time I ever cried alone in my own kitchen. I will tell you something I have never, in any interview, told anybody. The thing about a love story is that the love is not only between the two people whose names are on the title page. The love is also the love of the women who, in the small private kitchens of 2 different houses on 2 different sides of Akron, raised the 2 people whose names are on the title page. My mother-in-law was the second mother of my life. My mother was the first. They have, between them, kept doing the honest work that has kept this love story standing for 24 years, every Tuesday and every Friday, since. The kitchen kept its warmth on the morning Mama Glow came up. Here is what happened next. Chapter 8, LeBron, the Quiet House. I want to tell you about the Tuesday I came home and could not find my own son. It was March 2005. I was by then 13 weeks into my first season. We had played 13 games on the road. I had averaged on those games somewhere north of 24 points per game. I had, on 3 different nights, hit a game winner. I had, on 2 of those nights, had a national television camera on me afterwards, asking me how it felt. I had said, on all 3 nights, the same sentence. "I am just trying to do my job for my teammates." I had been telling the truth. I had not, on the same calendar, been doing my job for my family. I came home on a Tuesday, on a flight from Sacramento that landed in Cleveland at 6:40 in the morning. I had not slept on the plane. I had, in the way only 20-year-old men do, slept 3 hours on the night before the game. I had played the game. I had taken the questions afterwards. I had taken the bus to the airport. I had gotten on the plane. I had, on the plane, watched film of the next opponent. I had landed. I had driven myself from the Cleveland airport to the townhouse on 6.5 hours of sleep across 2 days. I walked in the front door at 7:15 in the morning. The house was quiet. I walked into the kitchen. The kitchen was empty. The oatmeal pot was on the stove. The pot was empty. There was, on the counter, half a banana and a small spoon. There was, on the floor next to the trash can, the dog, who was asleep. There was, on the breakfast counter, a baby bottle with 3 ounces left in it. There was no Savannah, and there was no Bronny. I stood in the kitchen for A full minute. I had, in the small private accounting of my own self at that moment, the first sentence of fear I had had since the night Bronny was born. Where is my family? I had by then been a husband-shaped absence in this house for 13 weeks. I had expected, on every road trip, to come home to the smell of oatmeal on the stove and the sound of my 5-month-old son in some part of the house I could walk to. I had not, until that morning, considered that one Tuesday in March, the oatmeal pot could be empty, and the baby bottle could be on the counter, and the house could be quiet, and I would not know where in my own house my own son was. I walked up the stairs. I walked down the hall. I opened the door of the nursery. The nursery was empty. I had a very brief moment of pure animal fear. Then I heard, from the bathroom at the end of the hall, the sound of a baby laughing, not crying, laughing. The small, unfaked laugh of a child who has just had something funny happen in front of his face. I walked down the hall. I opened the bathroom door. There, on the bathroom floor, was my wife. She was on her knees. She was wearing my t-shirt. She had a hairdryer in one hand. She had a baby brush in the other. The baby was on a small bath mat, wearing nothing but a diaper on his back, with both feet in the air. The hairdryer was on the cool setting. She was using it to dry his small belly. She was holding the brush in front of his face and waving it. The baby was laughing the way only a 5-month-old laughs, which is, on any honest accounting, the funniest sound a kitchen or a bathroom can make on a Tuesday morning. She turned around. She saw me. She did not jump. "Hey," she said, "you are home." "I am home," I said. "He had a poop incident," she said. "We are recovering." "I see," I said. "He is a clean kid," she said. "I am. Not so much." She laughed. She used the back of her wrist to push her hair out of her face. There was, in fact, a small smear of baby powder on her cheek. She had not slept. She had not washed her own hair. She had the whole world on a bath mat in front of her. She had also, on her own, in the small private accounting of every Tuesday morning for 13 weeks, kept doing the honest work that had built this house. I sat down on the bathroom floor. I leaned my back against the bathroom wall. I did not, at first, say anything. I just looked at the two of them. "Hi," I said, eventually, to the baby. "Hi, Daddy," Savannah said, in the small, high voice she did for him. "Hi, Daddy." The baby looked at me. He did not recognize me. He had, by his own small math, not seen me in 8 days. I had been a man on a television in this house. I had not been a man on a bathroom floor. I almost cried. I did not. I did, however, reach out. I did, however, put my hand on the small belly of my son. He looked down at the hand on his belly. He looked back up at me. He held the gaze. He, very slowly, lifted both feet off the bath mat and pressed them into the palm of my other hand. "Hi, baby," I said. "I am your daddy. I am home. Do not, on any honest accounting, leave him alone with that hairdryer," my wife said. "I am going to take a shower." She did. She left the bathroom. She closed the door. I sat on the bathroom floor with my 5-month-old son for the next 18 minutes. I sang to him, a Jay-Z song that I do not, in any decent way, want to put down on this page. I sang it badly. He did not care. He kept laughing. The baby kept doing his small, honest work on the bath mat, while his mother sang in the shower behind a closed door, and his father, on 6.5 hours of sleep across 2 days, finally finally came home. I will tell you a thing I, on any honest accounting, did not say to her until 5 years later. I sat on that bathroom floor and I made a small private promise. I made it on the inside of my own chest, where nobody, including her, could hear it. I promised that no matter how famous I, on any honest accounting, became, no matter how many championships I won, no matter how many times the cameras came around, I would, every Tuesday morning of my life I was at home, sit on a bathroom floor with my son, even if I had to fly back overnight from Sacramento on 6.5 hours of sleep to do it. The promise kept doing its small, honest work in the inside of my chest for the next 20 years. The hairdryer kept its hum on the cool setting on the bath mat until I turned it off. Here is what happened next. Chapter 9. Savannah, Bryce Maximus, June 14th, 2007. I will tell you about Bryce. Bryce came in June. He was the easy one. He came on a Thursday afternoon, on a labor that lasted 4.5 hours, in Akron General, with my mother and his mother and Maverick all in the room, the way they had been the first time, the same 4. He weighed 7 pounds and 6 ounces. He was a quieter baby. He did not, like his older brother, cry the moment he came out. He came out, looked at the lights, blinked twice, and waited. He has kept doing that his entire life. He is the most patient person in any room he walks into. He waits, he looks, he blinks, he decides what he thinks before he opens his mouth. I want to say, in front of every reader who has ever had a quiet middle child, that I love that boy with the whole of myself. I do. I have. I will. He is the most like me of all my children. I was not scared this time. I want to be honest about that, because I know how it sounds. The first child, you are scared. The second child, you are calm. People will tell you that. I am here to confirm that they are telling the truth. I had, by Bryce's birth, 3 years of motherhood under my belt. I had, by Bryce's birth, 3 years of being the wife of the most famous 22-year-old in the country. I had, by Bryce's birth, not yet been married to him. I want to be honest about that also. We had by then been together for 5 years. We had by then been parents for 3 years. We had not, on any official document, been married. My mother had told us, in the kitchen of the house I had grown up in, on August 4th, 2004, that we would not get married until we were both sure that the marrying was not, in any way, the chasing of a baby. We had taken her at her word. He had asked me in private on 3 separate occasions since Bronny had been born. I had, on every one of those 3 occasions, said, "Not yet." I want you to know what not yet meant. Not yet did not mean no. Not yet meant I am not going to walk down an aisle until I am the kind of woman I want to be on the day I do it. I want to be honest again. I was not yet that woman. I was 20 years old. I was a mother of 1. I was about to be a mother of 2. I had never lived in a city other than the 2 cities of Akron and suburban Cleveland. I had never had a single day of grown adulthood without a baby on my chest. I wanted to be a wife on my own schedule and not on the schedule of his contract, his city, or his career. He waited. He was the most patient man I have ever known about that one thing. He was the most impatient man I have ever known about everything else. I want to give you the joke about him as a young husband-shaped person. He did not know how to wait for water to boil. He did not know how to wait for a steak to rest on a cutting board. He did not know how to wait for an oven to preheat. He did not know how to wait for the toaster to pop. He would push down the toaster lever, walk into the next room, watch 30 seconds of NBA film on the television, walk back, push the lever down again because it had popped while he was gone, walk back into the next room, and so on. I had, by the second year of our living together, had to have a quiet conversation with him about the toaster. I had said to him, very dryly, "Baby, the toast will finish on its own time." He had laughed. He had pretended to take the lesson. He had that night made himself a sandwich and burnt the bread 3 times in a row. "Babe," I had said, "babe, the toast." "I know," he had said. "I know, baby. Can you just wait?" "No," he had said. "No, I cannot. I have never been able to wait for anything." This is the man I had a second child with. Bryce was a watcher. Bronny was a doer. The contrast, by the time the 2 boys were 2.5 and 5, was the contrast of 2 boys who had been engineered by the universe to round each other out. Bronny picked up a basketball at age 3. Bryce, at age 3, picked up a small wooden chess piece my mother had brought over and held it for 40 minutes and looked at it and finally put it down. Bronny ran. Bryce sat. Bronny laughed loud. Bryce laughed quiet. They were the 2 halves of their father in the same way the 2 of us, on a Saturday night in October 2002, had been the 2 halves of one Akron. I want to tell you the moment I knew that we were going to be okay. It was the Christmas of 2007. Bryce was 6 months old. Bronny was 3 years old. We had by then decorated our first real Christmas tree in suburban Cleveland. The tree was 8 feet tall. It was the kind of tree my mother would have called unnecessarily ambitious. He had picked it. He had, the way he does, picked the biggest one on the lot and brought it home and tried to set it up and almost knocked over a bookshelf. He had, on the night we set it up, stood in the corner of the living room with a glass of eggnog in one hand and a tree topper in the other, looking at the tree and looking at me, and finally saying, very quietly, "Babe, I cannot reach the top." I had laughed. I had laughed for about 10 minutes. I had never laughed harder in my life than I laughed at the sight of the most famous 22-year-old in the country. 6'8", the future most valuable player of the league, holding a small angel-shaped tree topper, looking at the 8-foot tree he himself had bought and admitting that he could not reach the top. "Get the step stool," I had said. "I do not want to use a step stool, Savannah," he had said. "Why?" I had said. "Because I am LeBron James," he had said, with all the deadpan he could muster, and a man of my professional reputation should not need a step stool. I had laughed harder. He had used the step stool. He had put the angel on. He had stepped down. He had stood next to me. We had stood, the 2 of us, in the living room of a townhouse in suburban Cleveland, with a 6-month-old in a bassinet on the couch and a 3-year-old asleep on a beanbag on the floor, and we had looked at the tree. I had said, very quietly, "Baby, I think we are going to be okay." He had said very quietly, "I know we are." The angel on the top of the tree kept her posture all the way through Christmas Eve, until the cat my mother had given us, by accident, knocked her down with a paw on the morning of New Year's Day. The tree kept doing its honest work on the carpet of the living room, even after the angel was gone. Here is what happened next. Chapter 10. LeBron, the Decision. I will tell you, only once, what the decision did to my marriage. I will tell it once, because I have been telling it to myself for 15 years, and I have only landed on the truth of it in the last 5. I am going to give you the truth of it. It was July 8th, 2010. I was 25. Savannah was 24. We had by then 2 boys. We had been in suburban Cleveland for 7 years. We had by then an entire family of friends and aunts and an extended family of teammates and a small private system of life that we had built together. We had a routine. We had a kitchen we knew. We had a hospital we knew. We had a pediatrician. We had a babysitter. We had a Saturday breakfast spot. We had a church my mother had picked out that we had not always gone to, but had at least known the address of. We had a city. We left it. I want to be honest about why we left it. I had, by the spring of 2010, run out of road in Cleveland. I had been to 2 finals. I had not won. I had been most valuable player. I had not won. I had been a good son to a city that had raised me, and the city had given me back everything I had asked of it, and the road had run out. I needed to go somewhere I could win. I picked Miami. I picked it because Dwayne Wade was there, and Dwayne Wade was the closest thing I had to a brother in the league, and Dwayne Wade had told me, on a dock in the Bahamas, in late June of 2010, that we could win there. I believed him. I picked Miami. I want to tell you what happened next. On the night I told the country, I had a meeting with my agent the morning of July 8th. We sat in a conference room on the top floor of an office building in Midtown Manhattan. We talked about the announcement. I had not yet told my mother what I was going to say. I had not yet told Savannah what I was going to say. I had told them I was going to make a decision, and that the decision was going to be on television, but I had not given them the city. I had been on my own, in the small private accounting of my own self, deciding the city all the way up to that morning. Savannah was, that day, in Coconut Grove, in a rental house we had taken for the week. The boys were with her. My mother was with her. The boys were 3.5 and almost 6. They were in a swimming pool in the backyard, with floaties on, watched by their grandmothers, while their 24-year-old mother sat on a deck chair with a phone in her hand and waited for me to call her. I called her at 4 in the afternoon, 2 hours before the announcement. "Baby," I said. "Yes," she said. "Miami," I said. There was a silence. I will not lie. The silence on the other end was the longest silence she had ever given me. I want you to know what she did not do on her own end at that moment. She did not in any way ask me if I was sure. She did not ask me about the city. She did not ask me about the team. She did not ask me about the contract. She did not even ask me about the boys' schools. She asked me one question. "Is it on television?" "Yes," I said. "The whole thing?" "Yes," I said. She was silent again. I could hear in the background our older son in the pool, laughing about something. I could hear in the air around her phone the hum of a Coconut Grove pool deck in early July. I could hear the entire next 4 years of my life. "Okay," she said. "Okay," I said. "LeBron," she said. "Yes." The boys are going to need to know they are still loved by Cleveland, she said. Whatever you do tonight on television, I am going to need you to. Leave room in your heart and in their lives for the city we are about to leave behind. Yes, ma'am, I said. Promise me, she said. I promise, I said. I want to be honest with you, I did not, on the night of July 8th, leave room. I went on television. I said the words. I gave the country a sentence I had not given my own wife the chance to react to. I said I am going to take my talents to South Beach. I will tell you on this page that the sentence has never fully been forgiven. The sentence was a sentence I regret. It was, on its own, ridiculous. It was the cleverness of a 25-year-old who, on his own, did not yet know how to talk to his own city. Savannah watched it from a couch in Coconut Grove, with my mother on the cushion next to her, and the boys asleep in the next room, and a glass of unsweetened iced tea in her hand. And she did not say a single word until the broadcast was over and the cameras had cut away, and I had walked off the stage. Then she called me. Then I picked up. Then she said very quietly, I love you. I will always love you. We are going to need to fix this together. Get on the plane. Come home. I got on the plane. I came home. I came home to Coconut Grove, which was not yet home, but was going to have to be home for the next 4 years, because we had, on television, just told an entire country that it was. I was met at the airport in Miami the next morning by a phalanx of cameras I had not asked for. I had no idea what I had just done to my own life until I got into a black SUV at the curb of the Miami airport at 1 a.m, and the driver looked at me in the rearview mirror and said, Mr. James, you have gotten yourself into a situation. I will not pretend I did not that night cry. I cried in the back of the SUV. I cried for about 4 minutes, with my forehead against the cold glass of the back window, while a Miami driver gave me a look in the mirror that was the look of a man who had, in his own life, seen every kind of celebrity walk into that back seat, and who had not yet seen one cry. He did not say anything. He did hand me a small package of tissues from the glove compartment when we hit the bridge to Coconut Grove. I took them. I used them. I came home. I walked in the front door of the rental at 1:20 in the morning. The lights were on. Savannah was on the couch. She had not gone to sleep. The boys were asleep in the next room. The dog, who had been driven down to Miami in the back of my mother's car a week earlier, was on the rug. There was a glass of unsweetened iced tea on the coffee table, the same one she had been drinking when I had been on television, except that the ice had melted and the glass was no longer cold. She did not stand up. She did not, in any way, make me come over to her on her terms. She just looked at me. She held the look. I walked over to the couch. I sat down next to her. I put my forehead against her temple. I closed my eyes. I am sorry, I said. I know, she said. I should have given you the line before I gave it to America, I said. Yes, she said. Yes, you should have. But I am here. We are going to fix it. Together. You are going to call Cleveland. You are going to call your mother. You are going to call my mother. You are going to call Bronny's preschool teacher by name because that woman has been good to our son. You are going to do this in private because you did the rest of it in public. Yes, ma'am, I said. I made the calls. I made them over the course of 6 days. I called Bronny's preschool teacher by name. I called my mother's pastor. I called my high school coach. I called the woman at the corner store on Copley Road who had, when I was 12, given me a free Snickers bar on a Friday afternoon when I had been 50 cents short. I made the calls. Savannah sat next to me on a couch in Coconut Grove with a notebook and a list and a glass of unsweetened iced tea and made me do every one of the calls myself. She kept her own honest counsel. I want you to know before this chapter ends that the marriage we have today did not, on any honest accounting, get built in any of the 4 good things that have happened to us. The marriage we have today got built in those 6 days on a couch in Coconut Grove, with a notebook and a phone and a glass of unsweetened iced tea that, by the time I was done, had been refilled about 30 times. The iced tea kept its coldness on the coffee table even after I had finished every call. Here is what happened next. Chapter 11. Savannah, a wife who is not yet a wife. I want to tell you the night I almost left him. I am going to tell it once on this page because I have never told it before in any podcast, on any couch, in any interview. I have only told it to 2 people, to my mother on a Tuesday afternoon in August of 2010, to Mama Glow on a Friday afternoon in September of the same year. Neither of them ever told it back. I almost left him in the 2nd month of Miami. I want to be honest about what almost left him means, because I do not want any reader of this book to misunderstand. Almost left him did not mean I packed a bag and went to the door. Almost left him meant that I, on a Tuesday in late August 2010, in a house in Coconut Grove that did not yet know the layout of, sat on the bed in our bedroom with a small notebook on my knee and wrote, on a single line, in pencil, the sentence I am, considering whether I am going to do this. I wrote it. I read it. I did not, on any honest accounting, show it to anybody. I tore the page out. I kept it in the back of a copy of a Toni Morrison novel that, a year later, my mother-in-law accidentally borrowed and returned, with the page still in it, and which, by the grace of the universe, my mother-in-law did not ever, on any honest accounting, open. I want to tell you what was on me that night that put the pencil to the page. The boys were asleep. The dog was in the kitchen. The husband, who was not yet my husband, was on a flight back from a charity event in Houston. The house was mine. I had, on the surface, a house most 24-year-olds in this country would have given their right arm for. I had also, on the same surface, a life I had, in no part of myself, asked for. I had, on television 3 weeks earlier, had my entire family identified, by name, as the first family of a city I had never lived in. I had that morning, on the way back from the grocery store, had a man take a photograph of me and Bronny in a Publix parking lot, on his phone, without my permission. I had the night before gotten a text from my high school girlfriend in Akron, asking me, with awkwardness, if I had, on any honest accounting, changed. I had sat on the side of the bed and looked at that text for a full 10 minutes before I had answered. No, I had answered. I have not changed. I am just tired. I had been tired for 3 years. I want to be specific. I had been tired since the Christmas of 2007, when I had laughed for 10 minutes at the man with the angel-shaped tree topper, and I had said, "We are going to be okay." I had been telling myself the same sentence on every Tuesday since, and the sentence had, by August of 2010, started to feel like a sentence I was performing. I want to tell you what saved the marriage that night. He came home at 1 in the morning. He had taken a red eye. He walked in the front door, dropped his duffel, and called my name. He did not call it loud. He never calls anybody's name loud. He called it the way he calls it when he, on his own, does not yet know what he is going to find. Savannah, he called. I did not answer. I want to be honest about that. I did not answer. I sat on the bed with a notebook on my knee and the pencil in my hand, and I did not answer him. I let the silence sit. The silence was the loudest sentence I had said to him in 8 years. He found me. He came up the stairs. He came down the hall. He pushed the door of the bedroom open. He saw me. He did not say anything for about 10 seconds. He just looked at me. He looked at the notebook. He very slowly walked over to the bed. He very slowly sat down on the edge of it. He very slowly put his hand, palm up, on the bedspread next to my knee. He did not take my hand. He just made the hand available. He did not, on any honest accounting, look at the page. He looked at me. Tell me, he said. I did not speak for a very long time. He did not hurry me. He sat. He waited. He kept the hand palm up on the bedspread. The hand kept doing its small, honest work on the bedspread the entire time, even when I did not for a full 16 minutes take it. I will tell you what I finally said. I am tired, I said. I know, he said. I am. Not sure I want to do this, I said. Tell me what you do not want to do, he said. I do not want to be the wife of the man on television, I said. I want to be the wife of the kid from Akron. I have never wanted anything else. I do not know how to do the other one. He did not say anything for, on my best honest accounting, a count of 12. Then he said very quietly, I am the kid from Akron, baby. The kid is the man on television. I cannot separate them. I will, on every single Tuesday morning we are alive, try. Try harder, I said. Yes, ma'am, he said. Promise me, I said. I promise, he said. I took the hand. I took the hand. I did not, on any honest accounting, look at him. I looked at the hand. I held it. He did not squeeze. He just kept the hand open, the way he has, kept it open since he was 16 and on a porch in Akron with a styrofoam container of cold cheese fries. I tore the page out. I did not show it to him. I closed the notebook. I put it in the drawer. I took the page and slid it into the back of the Toni Morrison novel on the bedside table. I did not leave him. I want to be specific, again, about why. I did not stay because of the boys, although the boys would have been a reason. I did not stay because of the house, although the house was nice. I did not, on any honest accounting, stay because of the camera, the contract, or the city. I stayed because the man on the edge of my bed at 1 in the morning had kept his hand open on the bedspread for 16 minutes without trying to take mine. He had let me come to him. He had given me the only thing I had needed from him in the previous 3 years. He had given me the right to come to him on my own time. The hand, palm up, on the bedspread, kept doing its honest work, even after I had finally taken it. I want to give you the rest of that month in one sentence, because the rest of that month was the work. we sat on a couch in Coconut Grove every single night for 2 weeks after the boys went to sleep, and we talked about every small thing that had gone unspoken since 2007. We did not, on any honest accounting, do it loudly. We did it the way two people from Akron, on a couch, do anything serious. We did it slowly. We did it with the television on low. We did it with iced tea. We did it with the honesty of two people who had, since a Saturday in October of 2002, never once been able to lie to each other about anything that mattered. We did the work. The couch kept its patience on the rug of a rental in Coconut Grove every single night for 2 weeks until the work was done. Here is what happened next. Part 3. Staying. 12. LeBron, the Shellborn. December 31st, 2011. I will tell you about the night I almost dropped the ring. I want to be specific. I had, by the spring of 2011, been carrying around, in the small inside pocket of various jackets I owned, a small velvet box for almost a year. I had bought the ring in Beverly Hills in March. I had picked it with my mother and Maverick and my agent. I had picked the worst possible time to carry a small velvet box around in my jacket pocket, because by the spring of 2011, I had finished my first season in Miami, lost the finals to Dallas, and had spent the entire summer being, by every honest accounting, the most reviled professional athlete in the country. I had, on every single morning of that summer, watched a sports talk show host say, very calmly, on national television, that I was a coward. I had internalized the sentence. I had started, in private, to wonder if it was true. I want to be honest about that. The summer of 2011 was the worst summer of my entire life. I did not know if I was, on the inside of my own chest, the man Savannah had picked. I had not yet won. I had not yet become the man I had, on the night of October 6th, 2004, promised the small, dark head on my wife's chest that I was going to be. I almost did not propose. I want to be specific again. I almost did not propose because on the inside of my own chest, I did not, that fall, feel like a man who was worthy of a yes. I had sat in the kitchen of the Coconut Grove house on a Tuesday afternoon in October with my mother, and I had said, very quietly, "Ma, I do not know if I should ask her this year." My mother had not in any way raised her voice. Why, she had said, "Because I have not won," I had said. "Son," my mother had said. "Yes, ma'am. The woman who has been with you for 9 years, who has had 2 of your children, and who is sitting on the back porch of this house at 3 in the afternoon, making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for your sons, did not, on any honest accounting, sign up for the trophy. She signed up for the boy. The boy is what you have. Give her the boy." "Yes, ma'am," I had said. And "Son," my mother had said. "Yes, ma'am. Do not drop the ring." I almost dropped the ring. I want to give you the picture of the night. The Shellborn Hotel on Miami Beach on the night of December 31st, 2011, was a place I had picked because it was the kind of hotel that, on a New Year's Eve, threw a party big enough to camouflage what I was about to do. We had that night a small private room on a high floor of the Shellborn, with a balcony and a view of the ocean and a small, careful set of candles, and a bouquet of white flowers I had ordered from a florist Maverick had recommended. We had on the bed a tray of fruit. We had on a small table a bottle of champagne. We had on the wall a piece of art. The piece of art was a wave. I had picked the wave because I had thought it would be a metaphor. I am not making this up. I had thought the wave will be the metaphor for our life. I had been 27 years old. I had had the metaphor instinct of a 27-year-old. I regret the wave. The plan was that we would have dinner downstairs. We would, around 11:30, come up to the room. I would, at 5 minutes to midnight, pour 2 glasses of champagne. I would, at midnight, ask her. I would, on the schedule I had written in my notebook, give her the ring at 12:01. The ring would be in my left jacket pocket, in the velvet box, the entire night. We had dinner downstairs. We laughed. We drank, only a small amount, because she was by then 2 years off of the second baby, and I had a season to play. We came up to the room at 11:20. I was sweating. I had not in any way told her where we were going. I had told her we were having a private dinner. She had, by the elevator, raised one eyebrow at me and said, "Baby, what is going on?" "Nothing," I had said. "Just a dinner." She had said. "I want you to know that by the time we got to the room, she knew." She did not let on. She walked into the room. She saw the candles. She saw the flowers. She saw the wave on the wall. She glanced at the wave for a full second longer than she should have. She did not say anything about the wave. She never has. We sat on the small couch. We talked. I do not, on any honest accounting, remember a single thing I said in the next 20 minutes. She has told me, in the years since, that I gave her in those 20 minutes a monologue about the difference between a man and a husband that by her honest accounting made absolutely no sense. You sounded, she has said, like a TED Talk being given by a person who had not ever attended a TED Talk. Yes, ma'am, I have said. Yes, ma'am, I am sure I did. At 11:55, I went over to the small table. I poured the champagne. I came back to the couch. I gave her a glass. I sat down. I was, by then, sweating through my shirt. At 1 minute to midnight, I stood up. I did not kneel. I want to be specific about that. I did not kneel because I was so nervous that I did not trust my own knees to fold. I stood. I held the box in my left hand. I had not yet opened the box. The box was a small black velvet square. The fireworks on the beach below had by then started. "Savannah Renee Brinson," I said. "Yes," she said. I almost dropped the box. I want to be specific. The box slipped a 1/4 inch in my fingers. I caught it. I almost laughed. I did not laugh because I was on the verge of tears, and I had been told in 8 years of being on cameras that the one thing I could not do on any official record was laugh and cry at the same time. I held the box. I held it tight. "Savannah Renee Brinson," I said again. "I have been a kid from Akron my entire life. I have not been able to imagine, on any honest accounting of my own self, the rest of that life without you in it. Will you marry me?" She did not answer for a full count of 3. I want you to know what those 3 counts felt like. I had played 4 finals in my career by that night. I had by then missed 2 of them. I had by then taken hundreds of free throws on the road in front of 17,000 people who did not want me to make them. I had never been more nervous in my life than the 3 counts between the question and her answer. She then said, very quietly, "Yes." "Yes," she said. "Yes, baby, yes. Of course, yes." I opened the box. I almost dropped the ring on the carpet. The ring was a 7-carat pear-shaped diamond set in platinum with 2 small stones on each side. I had picked it with my mother. My mother had said, "Son, do not pick the cushion. Pick the pear. The pear is the shape of a tear, and Savannah has shed enough tears for you to last her a small lifetime." I had taken the advice. I had picked the pear. I slid the ring onto her finger. The ring fit. The ring fit on the first try. I almost made a joke about the metaphor of a ring fitting on the first try. I, on my best honest accounting, did not. I looked at her. She was crying. She was crying without sound. She was crying the way she always cries, which is to say without sound, with her shoulders not shaking, with her hands very still in her lap, with the tears coming down her face in a steady line. She was the same girl who, 8 years earlier, had eaten cold cheese fries off a styrofoam container in a kitchen in Akron, and who, the night before, had cried in the same way over a small line her older son had said about a teacher. I will tell you, on this page, the joke I made next. I made it because I did not trust myself with a serious sentence. I said, deadpan, I felt like that proposal was a finals game. She laughed. She laughed for a full minute. She laughed so hard she had to put her champagne glass down. She has been laughing at the line on every interview cycle since, for 14 years. She is the only person on the planet who is, on any official record, allowed to make me say it again. The ring kept its weight on her left ring finger the entire flight home from Miami the next morning. Here is what happened next. Chapter 13. Savannah, the 19 months before the wedding. I want to tell you about a wedding that did not happen for 19 months. We got engaged on December 31st, 2011. We were married on September 14th, 2013. The math is 21 months. I want you to sit with that. We had been a couple for 9 years before we got engaged. We were a couple for 1 year and 9 more months before we got married. By the time I walked down the aisle, the boys were 8.5 years old and 6 years old. They were not, on any honest accounting, ring bearers. They were 2 of the men in their father's wedding party. Bronny was a small tuxedo. Bryce was a slightly smaller tuxedo. They walked their mother halfway down the aisle. I will give you, on this page, why we waited. I had told him in the small, careful kitchen of the Coconut Grove house on a Tuesday in January 2012, 2 weeks after the proposal, that I was not going to do this on the schedule of the cameras. Baby, I had said, I will not be a wife on a Sunday afternoon ESPN special. I will be a wife in a small chapel, in a small dress, with my mother in the front row, on the day my own self picks the day. He had laughed. He had said, yes, ma'am. He had never, on any honest accounting, even once tried to push the date. I want to give you the work of the next 19 months, because the work is the part of the love story most love stories skip. I started planning the wedding in February 2012. I planned it on the kitchen counter of the Coconut Grove rental with a small spiral-bound notebook, a pen, and a bag of Twizzlers I had, kept in the back of the pantry for the express purpose of eating during the planning. I had, by my own admission, no idea what I was doing. I had never been to a wedding I had liked. I had been to 2 of them. One had been my cousin Toya's in Akron in 2006, which had been at a Holiday Inn with a DJ who very politely played cha-cha slide during the first dance. The other had been my friend Lala's in 2010, which had been a celebrity wedding, and which had taught me exactly the kind of wedding I, on my own life, did not want. I want to give you the very specific list of things I did not want. I did not want a 30-foot dress. I did not want a DJ who, by any honest accounting, played cha-cha slide. I did not want a celebrity guest list. I did not want, on any honest accounting, a single camera. I did not want anybody to live tweet anything. I did not want a single guest to bring a phone. I did not want my mother-in-law's quiet older sister, who was 67 and had a hip, to have to walk more than 30 steps. I did not want a Pinterest. I did not want anybody to ask me, on any honest accounting, what is your wedding hashtag? I did not even want a hashtag. I kept saying no a lot in those 19 months. I also said yes a lot. I said yes to the Grand Del Mar in San Diego because the Grand Del Mar was a chapel on the grounds of a hotel with a small, careful set of stone steps that my mother-in-law's quiet older sister could, on her hip, manage. I said yes to a Saturday afternoon in mid-September. I said yes to 200 guests, not 300, not 400, not 500. I said yes to a 5-course dinner. I said yes to a band, not a DJ, because I had, on my best honest accounting, watched a band at a wedding in 2010 that had made the entire room dance until 2 in the morning. I said yes to a particular friend of his who is herself the most famous singer of our generation, performing exactly one song at the reception with her own husband on bass. I will not, on this page, tell you any more about that. I will tell you that the song made my mother-in-law cry, and the song made my mother cry, and the song made my husband and his brother-in-law in the back of the room cry. The song is the song you would have picked. I will leave it at that. I want to tell you the thing I did, in private, that nobody outside of my own self ever saw. I wrote, in the small spiral-bound notebook, on the morning of the wedding, on the bathroom floor of the suite at the Grand Del Mar, in pencil, the sentence, "I am Savannah Renee Brinson of Akron, Ohio, and I will walk down this aisle with my own self." I wrote it. I read it. I did not show it to anybody. I tore the page out. I folded it into a small square. I slid it into the bottom of my left shoe. I walked down the aisle with the page under the ball of my left foot. I want you to know what was on that page. I did not write the page in order to feel small. I wrote the page in order to remind myself of the fact that no matter what I was about to be, I was walking down the aisle with my own Akron self. I was not going to lose her. I was not going to leave her behind on the bathroom floor of the suite. I was going to take her with me. I walked her down the aisle on the ball of my own left foot. The wedding was on a Saturday in mid-September. The chapel was on the grounds of the hotel. The guests had all been made to leave their phones at the door. I had insisted on it. I had the only photographer in the building. I had the only photographer at the reception. I had a guest list of 200, and I had, on my own, written every name on it. I had not let his agent write a name. I had not let my own brother write a name. I had written the names myself on a Saturday afternoon in March 2013 on the kitchen counter of the Coconut Grove rental with a glass of unsweetened iced tea and a Twizzler, while the boys in the next room watched cartoons. I walked down the aisle with my mother on my left arm and my brother on my right. Bronnie and Bryce walked us halfway. They took our hands at the back of the chapel. They walked us forward. They stopped at the third row. They kissed our hands. They let go. They walked on their own small adult schedule the rest of the way to the front and stood next to their father, who was, by then, on the verge of the only kind of crying I have ever seen him do, which is the small, silent, tear-streaked crying of a man whose chest is full and who will not, on any official record, let himself break. I walked the rest of the way alone, my mother on my left and my brother on my right, peeled off at the third row. I walked the last 12 steps with my own Akron self, on the ball of my left foot, alone. He was, at the front, in a black tuxedo. He was the best-looking man I have ever seen. The vows were written by us. I am not going to put them on the page. I am going to keep them in the small private accounting of our own marriage. I will, however, give you the only sentence I, on any honest accounting, said out loud, that has never been told to anybody else. I said very quietly, looking into his eyes, I am just a girl from Akron, and I am going to be your wife. He said very quietly back, I am the kid from Akron, and I am going to be your husband. The boys did not laugh. They knew on their own small math what they were watching. They knew the city. They knew the kitchen. They knew that the two people in front of them had been doing this every Tuesday morning for 8 years. The piece of paper kept its small, careful folded shape in the bottom of my left shoe the entire ceremony, until I took the shoe off in the suite 2 hours later and put the page back in the spiral notebook. Here is what happened next. Chapter 14. LeBron, a wedding night with a band. I want to tell you briefly about the band. I had told my wife 6 months before the wedding that I did not want to dance. I had never been a dancer. I am 6'8", 260 pounds, and I have, on my best honest accounting, the rhythm of a porch swing. I want to be plain with you. I cannot dance. I've never been good at it. I cannot, on any honest accounting, learn it. I had, in plain fact, taken one dance lesson in 2012 in a small, careful studio in Miami with a teacher who had, on the strict accounting of every honest 50 minutes she spent with me, looked at me, sighed, and said, very kindly, Mr. James, you are, in plain truth, doing your best. I had, on the strict accounting of my own self, walked out of that studio, paid the woman, and in any honest accounting, never returned. I had told her that, on our wedding night, I would do, with her, the slow first dance, and that on every other song the band played, I would be at the bar with my brother-in-law, drinking a small glass of bourbon and watching her dance with the boys. She had laughed for 15 minutes. LeBron, she had said. Yes, I had said. You are going to dance the entire night. No, I am not, baby. Yes, you are. I Do not dance, Savannah." "Baby," my wife had said, looking at me across the kitchen counter of the Coconut Grove rental, with her left hand on her chin and her right hand around a Twizzler. "I have watched you on the bench of an NBA game in the third quarter when the team is down 12, dance to a Drake song that came on over the arena speakers. You danced. I saw you. You will dance at our wedding. I will tell you that she was, right? I danced the entire night. I want to give you, before we close this chapter, the picture of the dance. The band was on a stage at the back of the ballroom. The first dance between the bride and the groom was a song by Marvin Gaye, which she had picked. I had asked for it last. She had said no. She had said very kindly, "Baby, Etta James is for the people who, on any honest accounting, met in their 20s. We are the people who met in their teens. We are going to dance to Marvin." She had picked "I Want You." We danced. I had not anticipated how slow the song was. I had not anticipated how long 4 minutes is. On a wooden ballroom floor, in front of 200 guests, with a wife in your arms and a small, careful piece of paper in the bottom of her left shoe, and a band 3 feet away, playing the song slow. I almost cried. I did not. I kissed her on the temple. I said very quietly, "I love you." She said very quietly, "I know you do. I want to tell you also about the friend who sang the second song. I am not going to put her name on the page. I will tell you that she is the most famous singer of our generation. I will tell you that she had flown in from a show the night before in another country and was leaving for another show the next afternoon in another country. I will tell you that she had, on her own, asked us 3 months before the wedding if she could sing on our wedding night exactly 1 song. I will tell you that we said yes. I will tell you that the song was the song you would have picked. She came up to the front of the bandstand. She did not say anything to the room first. She just nodded to the band. The band started. She sang the first verse. The room lost its mind. I will tell you what happened next. I, the man who had told my wife 6 months earlier that I would, on any honest accounting, not dance, danced with her for 3 full songs in a row. I danced with my mother. I danced with her mother. I danced with my friend Maverick. I danced with my brother-in-law. I danced with my older son, who was 8.5 years old, and who came up to my chest, and who looked up at me and said, very quietly, "Daddy, you are dancing." "Yes, son," I had said. "Mama said I had to." "Mama always knows," my son had said. "Yes, son, she does." I want to tell you finally about the line my older son said to my younger son at the very end of the night on the back porch of the suite, while their mother was getting ready for bed inside. The boys were sitting on the back porch with 2 slices of cake on a small paper plate. Bryce was eating the cake with his hands. Bronny had a fork. Bryce had decided on his own that the fork was for the wedding and the hands were for the cake. He was 6 years old. I walked out onto the porch in my tuxedo to bring them. On a glass, 2 glasses of milk. Bronny looked up at me. "Daddy," he said. "Yes, son. Mama is the boss of you. I want you to know what I almost said. I almost said, 'Yes, son.' I almost said it deadpan. I almost said it the way a tired husband says it on a Sunday afternoon after a long day. I did not say that, I said very quietly, kneeling down to be at his height. Son, the boss of me is your mother. The boss of every man you will ever respect in your entire life is the woman who picked him. Do you understand? He nodded. Bryce, I said, did you hear me? Yes, Daddy, Bryce said, with cake on his cheek. I heard you. I kissed both of them on the top of the head. I went back inside. I closed the porch door. I walked into the suite. My wife was sitting on the edge of the bed with a small, careful piece of paper from the bottom of her shoe in her hand. She was looking at it. She did not say anything when I walked in. She just looked up at me. Baby, she said. Yes, I said. The boys are all right on the porch. Yes, ma'am. Bronny said that I am the boss of you. Yes, ma'am. What did you tell him? I told him, I said, that the boss of every man he will, on his own life, respect, is the woman who picked him. She did not say anything for a long time. Then she stood up. Then she walked over. Then she put her hand on the back of my neck. Yes, she said. Yes, baby, yes. That is the only sentence in the whole wedding I needed you to say to one of our kids. I kissed her. We went to bed. We did not turn on the television. The band on the floor below kept playing until 2 a.m, while the sons of the bride and the groom fell asleep on a porch chaise on top of a tuxedo jacket with a small fork and the small, careful paper plate and 2 empty glasses of milk. The plate kept its crumbs on the porch chaise until the housekeeper came in the next morning and cleared it. Here is what happened next. Chapter 15. Savannah coming home, July 11th, 2014. I will tell you about the morning he told me we were going home. It was July 11th, 2014. We had by then been in Miami for 4 years. We had by then 2 championships in the trophy case at the Coconut Grove house. We had by then the boys settled in a school that had been good to them. We had by then the kind of life I had on the bedroom floor of a suburban Cleveland townhouse in the fall of 2004, never imagined I was going to have. We had by then an entire room in the Coconut Grove house dedicated to small wooden frames, the kind my mother had brought down on her last visit, with photographs of the 4 of us, and the dog, and my mother, and his mother, and Maverick, and the boy's babysitter, and the chronological accounting of a family that had been learning how to be a family. I want to be honest about Miami. Miami, by the spring of 2014, had become home. I had found, on a corner of South Bay Shore Drive, a coffee shop where the woman behind the counter knew my order. I had found a yoga teacher I liked. I had found a small, careful set of 3 women who, on a Tuesday morning, would come over to my kitchen and drink coffee with me and not ask me about my husband. I had made a life. The life was not Akron. The life was not Cleveland. The life was mine. He came home from a road trip in early July. I do not remember the city. I remember he came home, walked in the kitchen, set his duffel down, and he stood by the kitchen island for a long time. He did not sit down. He did not take off his jacket. He just stood. I had by then been with him for 12 years. I knew the body language of a man who had, in his own chest, been carrying a sentence around for a week and was about to put it down. Baby, he said. Yes, I said. I want to go home. I want to be specific about the silence. The silence in our kitchen at 3 in the afternoon on July 11th, 2014, was the longest silence of our marriage, and it lasted 6 full seconds. I want to tell you what was in those 6 seconds. In the first second, I had to remind myself that home, in his honest mouth, did not mean the city we were standing in. Home, in his mouth, meant only one place on the entire planet. Home meant Akron. Home meant the apartment off Hickory Street where his mother had raised him. Home meant the bleachers at St. Vincent St. Mary. Home meant the small, careful kitchen of my own mother's house on Bucktel Avenue. Home did not mean a job. Home meant the city of Akron. The Cavaliers were a job. The Cavaliers were only a job. In the second, I knew that he meant both. He meant Akron, the city. He meant the Cavaliers, the team. He meant going back. He meant leaving Miami. He meant leaving the small, careful set of 3 women on the Tuesday morning kitchen, and the yoga teacher, and the woman behind the counter at the coffee shop on South Bay Shore. He meant all of it. In the 3rd second, I noticed that he had not asked me. He had not said, "Baby, I want to ask you about going home." He had said, "Baby, I want to go home." The grammar was the grammar of a man who had, on his own, already made the decision. In the 4th second, I almost said it. I almost said, "You did not ask me." I almost said, "The last time you did this on your own, we lost half the city." In the 5th second, I looked at him. I looked at his face. I looked at the small, careful set of his shoulders. I looked at the tightness of his hand around the strap of the duffel. I saw the same kid from Akron who had, on the night of December 31st, 2011, almost dropped the ring. I saw the same kid who had, on a Thursday in October 2002, sat in a folding chair in a Bucktel cafeteria in a burgundy tie. I saw my own husband. In the 6th second, I said yes. I said yes because I am a girl from Akron, and the day my own husband told me he wanted to go home, I had to, on my own honest accounting, go home with him. I am from there. He is from there. The boys are from there. The whole of who we are was waiting for us in a small city with a downtown and a stretch of working-class neighborhoods on the west side. Yes, I said. He looked at me for a long time. Yes, I said again. Baby, yes. I will pack the kitchen. You will write the essay this time. And I want you to give the essay to a writer who is from Cleveland. He laughed. He laughed for, on my best honest accounting, 2 minutes. He laughed because the line was the line of a wife who had, 4 years earlier, sat next to him on a couch in Coconut Grove with a notebook and a glass of unsweetened iced tea and made him call Bronny's preschool teacher by name. He knew that the wife who had made him do that work was going to be the same wife who would make him do the work this time too. Yes, ma'am, he said. He did call a writer from Cleveland. The writer was Lee Jenkins. Lee Jenkins is not, by any strict accounting, from Cleveland. Lee Jenkins is from California. The point was that Lee Jenkins was a writer my husband trusted. The point was that the essay this time was going to be written in collaboration with somebody he respected. The point was that the essay was, this time, going to be ours. The essay came out on July 11th, 2014. The opening line of it was, "Before anybody ever cared where I would play basketball, I was a kid from Northeast Ohio." I, on a beach chair in the backyard of the Coconut Grove rental, on a Friday afternoon, read the essay on my phone with the boys in the pool and my mother-in-law in a chair next to me. I did not cry. I did, however, say very quietly to my mother-in-law, "Mama Glow, he did the work this time." "Yes, baby," my mother-in-law said. "He did." We packed the Coconut Grove house in a long, careful month. We drove the entire family back to Ohio in 2 cars, with a dog and a U-Haul behind the second car in early August. We settled that fall into a house in Bath Township, Ohio, that had a kitchen the size of 2 of my mother's kitchens. The kitchen had an island. The island had a small, careful set of stools. I sat on one of the stools on a Friday morning in late October 2014, with a cup of decaffeinated coffee in my left hand and a small white plastic stick in my right hand. And I looked at the stick. I called him at the practice facility. "Baby?" I said. "Yes," he said. "We are," I said, "going to need to convert the office." He came home. The Coke he picked up at the drive-thru on the way home kept its condensation on the kitchen island the entire time we sat on the stools and talked about which room of the new house was going to be the nursery for our daughter. Here is what happened next. Chapter 16. LeBron, Jury Nova, October 22nd, 2014. I want to tell you about the only daughter we ever had. She came in October. She came on the morning of October 22nd, 2014, at Akron General Hospital, in the same room my older son had been born in 10 years earlier. The room had not changed. The walls were the same color. The clock on the wall was the same clock. The window looked out on the same parking lot. I sat on the same chair I had been in for Bronny 10 years earlier. The chair was still too small for me. I was still 6'8". The math was the same. The math was not the same. I was not 19. I was 29. I had by then been a husband for 14 months. I had by then 2 championships. I had by then 2 sons. I had by then the comfort of a man who has learned that the labor and delivery floor of Akron General is, on every Tuesday and every Friday and every other day of the year, the most boring place a man with a phone can be. I had brought a book. I had brought a sandwich. I had brought a Ziploc, the same one I had brought in 2004, and which my wife had never thrown out. She laughed when I, on the morning of October 22nd, opened the bag and showed her the sandwich. "You brought it again," she said. "Yes, ma'am," I said. 10 years later, the same Ziploc. "Yes, ma'am." LeBron, my wife said very dryly, on the labor and delivery bed, with an IV in her arm and her hair in a bun and a contraction, 2 minutes from the next one. "You are the most predictable man in Northeast Ohio." "Yes, ma'am," I said. The labor was fast. Jury came in 3 hours and 14 minutes. She came at 11:17 in the morning. She weighed 6 pounds and 11 ounces. She was the smallest of our 3 children. She was also the loudest. She did not, like Bronny, come out and cry. She did not, like Bryce, come out and blink. She came out and yelled. She yelled for a full 90 seconds. The nurse looked at me. The nurse said, very dryly, "Baby, this one is going to have things to say." I laughed. The doctor put her on her mother's chest. Her mother held her. Her mother looked at her. Her mother said, very quietly, "Jury, Jury," I said. "Jury Nova James," my wife said. "Jury Nova James," I said. We had picked the name a month earlier on a Tuesday afternoon in the kitchen of the new Bath Township house. The name was Swahili. Juri means beautiful. We had picked it because my wife had said very calmly on a Tuesday in late September while she was making oatmeal on the stove, baby, I want her to know that the first thing anybody on this earth said to her was the word for beautiful. I had said, "Yes, ma'am." I had not even checked to see if the name was popular. I had taken the name on her say-so. I would, every single Tuesday since, take the name on her say-so. I want you to know about her. She is the softest of the three of them. She is the smallest. She is the most observant. She is the one who, in our kitchen on a Sunday afternoon, will watch her mother for 15 minutes without saying anything, and will then say very quietly, "Mama, are you okay?" Her mother will say very quietly, "Yes, baby." She will say, "Are you sure?" Her mother will say, "Yes, baby, I am sure." Then she will go on and play. She is the conscience of every room she walks into. I want to tell you the moment on her 6th birthday in October 2020 in the backyard of the Brentwood house we had, by then, been living in for 2 years when she taught me a thing about myself. She had just blown out the candles on her cake. She had made a wish. She had not told us what the wish was. I had asked her, "Baby," I had said, "what did you wish for?" She had looked at me. She had said very calmly, "Daddy, if I tell you the wish will not, on any honest accounting, come true." "That is right, baby," I had said. "That is right. I am sorry." She had nodded. She had then leaned forward and said very quietly in my ear, "Daddy, the wish was only that you and Mama never, on any honest accounting, get tired of each other. I want you to know what that did to me." She was 6. She had the instincts of her mother. She was in the backyard of the Brentwood house on her 6th birthday with a candle in her hand, telling me the only thing on her mind. She was telling me that the only thing she, on her own small life, was afraid of was that her parents would get tired of each other. She was asking me to keep the marriage. She was the conscience of the room. I kissed her on the temple. "Baby," I said, "I want you to know your mother and I are not, on any honest accounting, ever going to get tired of each other." "Why, Daddy?" she said. "Because, baby," I said, "we picked each other on purpose on a Saturday in October a long time ago, and we have kept picking each other every Tuesday since." "Okay, Daddy," she said. She finished her cake. The candle on top of the cake kept its waxy stub on the cake plate until her mother took the plate to the sink. Here is what happened next. Part 4. Proving. Chapter 17. Savannah, the I Promise School. I will tell you about a school. There's a school in Akron on West Market Street that opened on July 30th, 2018. That is the proudest thing my husband and I have ever done. The school is called the I Promise School. It is a public school in the Akron public school system. It is free. It serves the set of Akron children who are the most at-risk children in the district. They come with backpacks of trauma. They come with hunger. They come with the absence of every adult who on their own life has not shown up. The school shows up. I want to be honest about my role. I am not the founder. My husband is the founder. The school was his idea. He had, in 2011, walked into the office of the Akron Public Schools and said very calmly, "I want to take the kids in this district who have the lowest reading scores, the worst attendance, and the highest small private trouble at home, and I want to build a school for them." He had written a check. He had written more checks every year for the next 7 years. The school opened on a Monday morning in July 2018 with 243rd and 4th graders and a staff of teachers who had, on their own, signed up to be part of, on any honest accounting, the experiment. I want to be honest about what I did. I did the second job. I did the women's job. I want to be specific. I am the wife of the founder. I am also the woman who, since 2020, has every single year, on a Saturday in late April, hosted at the school a free prom dress giveaway for every senior girl in the I Promise school. I started it by accident. I had been on a Saturday in March of 2020 in a closet at the Brentwood house, going through a set of dresses I had not worn since the last time I had been to a benefit. I had 23 dresses on the floor. I had not worn any of them. I had then sat down on the floor of the closet and thought, Savannah Renee, there are 200 girls in Akron who are not, on any honest accounting, going to be able to afford a prom dress this spring. I called a friend in Akron. I called the principal of the school. I called the dean of girls. I organized, in 11 days, the first I Promise makeover. We set up a set of racks in the gym of the I Promise school. We, on a Saturday morning in April 2020, opened the doors. We had every senior girl in the school come in. We fitted each of them with a free dress. We had hairstylists. We had makeup artists. We had, on a folding table in the corner of the gym, a stack of corsages that every senior girl picked her own. I will tell you, deadpan, the part of the morning that, on the strict accounting of every honest staff member who was there, got the loudest laugh. We had, before the doors opened, asked the staff to, on the floor of the gym, walk one of the dresses, in stocking feet, the way the girls were going to be asked to walk. The dean of girls, who is a 5'2" woman in her late 40s, picked up a strapless gown 3 sizes too large for her, slid it on over her gym sweatshirt, took 2 steps toward the corner mirror, and, in plain truth, tripped on the hem. She did not fall. She caught the edge of a folding chair. She, in any honest accounting, looked at me. She said very calmly, "Deadpan, Mrs. James. The first senior girl through that door is on the floor of every honest assessment, going to walk better than I did, because I, in plain truth, just lost a fight with my own dress." I laughed for a full minute. The laughing was, in plain fact, the only reason any of the staff stopped being nervous. The dean of girls, on the strict accounting of every honest morning of the rest of her career, has been, in any honest accounting, the small, careful patron saint of the I Promise makeover ever since. I want to tell you the thing I learned that day. There was a senior girl named Janelle. I am not going to give you her last name. Janelle was 16 years old. She was an honor student. She was the oldest child in a single-mother household in Akron, with 2 younger siblings. She was the kind of girl who would not ask anybody for anything. She came into the gym at 11 in the morning. She picked a green dress off the rack. She held it up against herself in the mirror in the corner. She did not, on any honest accounting, smile. I walked over. "Baby," I said, "are you okay?" "Yes, ma'am," she said. "Are you sure?" I said. She looked at me for a long second. She looked back at the dress. She looked at the mirror. She did not smile. "Mrs. James," she said. "Yes, baby," I said. "I do not, on any honest accounting, know how to walk in a dress. I want you to know what that sentence did to me." I sat down on the gym floor next to her. I took my own shoes off. I asked her to take her shoes off. I remembered the Thursday in October 2002 in a Booktel cafeteria with a small wooden plaque on a folding chair next to me and a 16-year-old boy in a borrowed burgundy tie watching me from across the room. And I did not, on any Thursday morning of my own life, know how to walk in a dress. I had learned. I had learned in the kitchen of a Coconut Grove rental with my mother-in-law in 2010, with the boys asleep upstairs on a Tuesday afternoon in August, on the morning before a Miami Heat charity gala. My mother-in-law had walked me in a green dress on the kitchen tile in stocking feet for 45 minutes, telling me what to do with my hands. I had never forgotten the lesson. I taught the lesson back on a Saturday morning in April 2020 to a 16-year-old girl named Janelle in stocking feet in a green dress. She walked. She walked for 20 minutes. She walked, she turned, she walked back, she turned. She, by the end of the 20 minutes, smiled. She smiled the private smile of a 16-year-old girl who has been told that she is allowed to be beautiful. I almost cried. I did not cry. I never cry on the floor of a gym. I, however, kissed her on the cheek. I gave her my phone number. I told her, "Baby, if on any honest accounting of any prom night of your entire life, anything goes wrong, you are going to call me." She did not, on any honest accounting, call. She did send me 3 weeks later a photograph of herself in the green dress with her date on the front porch of her mother's house on the night of her prom. The photograph is on the kitchen island of the Brentwood house in a small wooden frame that I have not ever moved. The frame kept its position on the island every Tuesday morning until I dusted it. "I want to give you the sentence I said very quietly on the night of the first I Promise makeover in the backyard of the Brentwood house with my husband on the lounge chair next to me and a glass of unsweetened iced tea in my hand. I said, "Baby, I am just a girl from Akron." He did not look at me. He looked up at the sky. He said very quietly, "Yes, baby, you are." The iced tea kept its coldness on the lounge chair next to me every Saturday night for the next 4 years. Here is what happened next. Chapter 18. LeBron, July 24th, 2023. I will tell you on this page about the worst day of my life. I am going to do it briefly. I have not talked about it more than a set of times. I am not going to give you the small private accounting of every minute. I am going to give you the sentence I have on every honest occasion given. It was July 24th, 2023. It was a Monday. It was a sunny day. The sky was the blue of a postcard. The temperature was 74 degrees. There was a set of light Santa Ana winds where my older son, who was by then an 18-year-old freshman on the USC basketball team, was in his second week of summer practice. I was, on the morning of July 24th, 2023, on a family vacation in the Bahamas. I had by then been a Los Angeles Laker for 5 years. I had just finished my 20th season. I was 38. I had by then every single accolade a man can have in the strict accounting of professional basketball. I had 4 championships. I had 4 most valuable player awards. I had the comfort of a man who had every single morning given the work everything he had. I want to tell you what I had been doing exactly 12 minutes before the phone rang. I had been on a paddleboard in the bay behind the rental, in plain truth, attempting, on my own, to do a small, careful yoga pose I had seen on my wife's phone in a video she had been watching that morning. I had, in any honest accounting, the balance of a 6'8" man on a paddleboard, which is to say, the balance of a refrigerator on a paper plate. I had fallen off. I had laughed at myself. I had, in plain truth, climbed back on. The funny thing about that small, careful, absurd morning, on the strict accounting of every honest hour I have lived since, is that the last thing I, on my own life, did before the phone rang was laugh. I want you to hold that on the page with me, because the next sentence in this chapter is the worst sentence I have ever lived inside. I had not been ready for the phone call. The phone call came at 9:47 in the morning local time. The voice on the other end was Maverick. Maverick was, by then, the closest thing I had to a brother. He had, since the night of October 6th, 2004, been the second man in our family. Hey, did not ever call me at 9:47 in the morning. LeBron, he said. Yes. Bronny. I want you to sit on this page with the silence. I want you to sit with the 4 words I just gave you. LeBron. Yes. Bronny. There were 3 counts between the second and third word. The 3 counts were the longest 3 counts of my entire life. Mav, I said. Tell me. Bronny had a cardiac arrest on the practice court this morning at USC. The trainer started compressions inside of 10 seconds. They got an AED on him inside of 40 seconds. He has a pulse. He is breathing on his own. He is in an ambulance to Cedars-Sinai. I did not hear the word cardiac. I heard the word arrest. I had, in 2004, on the night Bronny was born, said into the small dark head on his mother's chest, I am your daddy. I will tell you everything I know. I had the first thought, I have not told him everything I know yet. I had the second thought, I do not know if I am going to get the chance. I did not fall apart. I want to be honest. I did not fall apart because I had, by then, the instincts of a man who had been a husband for 10 years and a father for 19. I did not fall apart because my wife was, sitting on the lounge chair next to mine with a book on her lap and a glass of unsweetened iced tea on the table next to her, and the steady look of a woman who was watching me and knew that something was very wrong. I looked at her. She did not ask. She stood up. She walked over to my chair. She knelt down. She took my left hand in both of her hands. She did not say a word. Bronny, I said. Cardiac arrest. practice, Cedars-Sinai. She did not on any honest accounting cry. She stood up. She walked into the bedroom. She picked up the overnight bag that she had not yet unpacked. She walked back to the lounge chair. She said very quietly, "Come on, baby. The plane is sitting on the runway. We will be at Cedars-Sinai by 2 o'clock. She kept doing the work. We were at Cedars-Sinai by 1:57 in the afternoon. The boy was in the cardiac intensive care unit in a private room with a steady heart monitor on his finger. He was awake. He was sitting up. He was eating the version of a Jell-O. He looked at us. He looked at his mother first. "Mama," he said. "Hi, baby," my wife said very quietly. "I am okay," he said. She walked over to the bed. She did not sit down. She leaned over. She kissed him on the forehead. She then sat down on the edge of the bed. She did not let go of his hand for the next 11 hours. I sat in the chair. The chair was too small for me. I was still 6'8". The math had not changed. The math had changed. "I want to give you the sentence my older son said to me on the night of July 24th, 2023. He said it around 11:30 in the evening. He said it very quietly, the way he says everything. He said it while his mother was asleep on the second hospital chair in the corner of the room. Daddy." "Yes, son." "I am sorry." "For what, son?" "For scaring you." "Brawny," I said. "Yes, Daddy. You did not do this. The thing did this. You did not." "Yes, Daddy." "Son," I said. "Yes, Daddy. Look at me." He looked at me. "I love you, man. I will love you." "Yes, Daddy," he said. "You hear me?" "Yes, Daddy. Go to sleep." He went to sleep. I sat in the too small hospital chair. I did not sleep. I watched the steady heart monitor on the screen for the next 7 hours until the sun came up over Beverly Boulevard and a nurse came in and very quietly said, "Mr. James, he is doing great. You can sleep." I did not sleep. I kept watching the steady heart monitor, the way I had watched the steady heart monitor of every Tuesday morning of his entire life since the night he was born. The heart monitor kept its steady beat on the screen every minute of every hour of the next 72 hours until they discharged him. I want to tell you on this page the only thing I said to my wife on the morning of July 27th, on the day they discharged him, in the elevator of Cedars-Sinai with the boy in a wheelchair between us. I said very quietly, "Baby, I am not going to leave him alone for the rest of my entire life." She did not say anything. She took my left hand in both of her hands, the way she had on the lounge chair in the Bahamas at 9:47 in the morning on July 24th, and she just held it. The hand kept doing its steady work in the elevator, all the way down to the lobby. Here is what happened next. Chapter 19. Savannah, the hospital chair. I will tell you about the chair. There was, in the cardiac intensive care unit at Cedars-Sinai, in the private room my older son was in for 72 hours in late July of 2023, a upholstered chair in the corner of the room That was the chair I sat in for the second night. I will tell you the second night because I, on any honest accounting, do not want to tell you the first night. The first night was the night I sat on the edge of his hospital bed with his hand in mine for 11 hours. The first night was the night I did not breathe. The second night was the night I finally breathed. I was, on the second night, in the upholstered chair. The boy was asleep. My husband was in the bigger hospital chair. He was awake. He was watching the heart monitor. The heart monitor was on a steady beat. The boy was breathing on his own. The boy was going to be okay. I want to tell you on this page the small, careful, ridiculous detail I have on the strict accounting of every honest morning since, never forgotten. The hospital chair my husband was sitting in plain truth, was too small for him. He is, in any honest accounting, 6'8". The chair was, on the strict accounting of every honest measurement, built for a 5'10" visitor. He had, on the floor of every honest assessment, his knees up around his ears. He looked, in plain fact, like a giraffe trying to sit on a kindergarten stool. I, in plain truth, almost laughed. I almost laughed because, on the strict accounting of every honest hospital chair, we, in any honest accounting, would ever sit in for the rest of our lives. The man, in plain fact, was never going to fit. The funny thing about love, on the floor of every honest assessment, is that the man, on the strict accounting of his own self, in any honest accounting, never tried to fit. He just, in plain truth, kept his knees up and watched the monitor and held his hand, palm up, on the arm of the chair. I almost laughed at the giraffe. I did not, on any honest accounting, laugh. I did, in plain fact, file the laugh away on the strict accounting of every honest morning since, for, on the floor of every honest podcast, the small, careful day I would, in any honest accounting, get to tell the story. I allowed myself, on the upholstered chair, in the corner of the room, in the dark, with my husband 3 feet away, to cry. I want to be specific about the crying. I cry without sound. I have cried without sound. My shoulders do not shake. My hands are very still in my lap. The tears come down my face in a steady line. I have never been a person who performs my own grief. I do not perform any of it. I do feel all of it. I cried on the second night in the upholstered chair for 2 hours. My husband did not come over. He knew. He had learned that the grief of his wife is a thing she has to feel on her own in the private accounting of her own chest. He did not come over. He sat in the bigger chair. He kept his hand palm up on the arm of his chair the same way he had kept it, palm up on the bedspread of a Coconut Grove rental in August 2010. I did not take it. I looked at him. He looked at me. We did not say a single word. We did not need to. I finished crying around 3 a.m. I then stood up. I walked over. I sat down on the arm of the bigger hospital chair. I took his hand. I held it. "Baby," he said. "Yes, we are going to be okay." "Yes," I said. "Bronny is going to be okay." "Yes," I said. "I am sorry I was not on the practice court when it happened. I looked at him for a long time. I said, very quietly, "Baby." The trainer was on the practice court. The AED was on the practice court. The Cedar-Sinai team was on the practice court. The chain of hands that kept him alive was on the practice court. You and I were on a lounge chair in the Bahamas. We do not get to be on every practice court of every Tuesday morning of his entire life. The kid has to walk into the world without us every single Tuesday morning for the rest of his entire life. We have raised him in such a way that when the world came at him, the chain of hands on the practice court was already there. That is the work we did. That is the only work we were ever going to be able to do. He did not say a word. He kept his hand, palm up, on the arm of the chair. He kept it open. He kept doing the honest work he had been doing on the bedspread of every kitchen and every couch and every coconut grove and every Brentwood and every hospital chair in our marriage for 23 years. I kissed his temple. I leaned my forehead against his. I said very quietly, "Baby, I am just a girl from Akron, and you are the kid from Akron, and our boy is going home with us tomorrow." "Yes, ma'am," he said. The hand kept its steady palm-up posture on the arm of the chair the entire rest of the night until the sun came up. Here is what happened next. Chapter 20. LeBron, October 22nd, 2024. I will tell you what happened on the night. I want to give you, before the night gets serious, the small, careful, absurd detail of the locker room, 2 hours before the tip. I, on the strict accounting of every honest pregame routine of my entire 22nd season, had, in plain truth, a small set of stretches I do in any honest accounting on the carpet next to my locker. My older son, in plain fact, on the night of his NBA debut, on the night of his 20th birthday, watched me do those stretches for, on the strict accounting of every honest minute the kid had ever sat next to me on a carpet the first time. He watched. He, in any honest accounting, did not say anything for 45 seconds. Then he looked up at me, deadpan, and he said very dryly, "Daddy, you, in plain truth, look ridiculous." I, in plain fact, almost choked on my water bottle. I laughed. I laughed on the floor of the Lakers' locker room 2 hours before my older son was, in any honest accounting, going to walk onto an NBA court for the first time. For, in plain truth, a full minute. The other guys, on the strict accounting of every honest teammate I have ever had, looked over. The other guys, in plain fact, did not, on any honest accounting, ask. They knew. They knew, in plain truth, that the kid had, on the floor of every honest dressing room, just done the small, careful thing every 20-year-old son, in any honest accounting, is, on the strict accounting of his own self, supposed to do. He had, in plain truth, made his father laugh. Before the game, on the only night of his entire life, he was, in any honest accounting, going to get a first one with his father. I want to be careful with the chapter. I have, on every honest interview cycle since, said very calmly that the night was the proudest moment of my entire career. I have meant the sentence. The sentence has been true. I will, on this page, give you the sentence underneath the sentence. The sentence underneath the sentence is, the night belonged to his mother. I want you to know that. I want you to know that on the night of October 22nd, 2024, in the home opener of the Lakers and the Timberwolves at Crypto.com Arena in downtown Los Angeles, the sentence the entire country told back to itself the next morning was the sentence about the father and the son. The sentence was a sentence about a 39-year-old man and a 20-year-old man becoming the first father and son to ever play in a single game in the entire history of professional basketball. The sentence was a sports sentence. The sentence underneath the sentence was a love story. The woman in the front row, in the black turtleneck, with her hands folded in her lap, with the tears coming down her face in a steady line, was the engine of the entire night. I want to give you the set of sentences the wife of the kid from Akron said into the private accounting of her own self on the night of October 22nd, 2024, while the camera caught the back of her head and the front of mine. She said, very quietly, "Bronny is alive." She said very quietly, the chain of hands on a practice court at USC on a Monday morning in late July of 2023 kept doing its honest work. Very quietly, the boy is going to play his first NBA game in front of his entire family. She said very quietly, "I am just a girl from Akron, and the boy is going to be okay." She said very quietly, "Okay." I want to give you the moment I walked past the scorer's table. It was the second quarter. There were 4 minutes left. The coach turned and pointed at the kid. The kid stood up. The kid walked to the scorer's table. The kid was 20 years old that day. It was his birthday. I was on the bench with a rolled towel against the back of my neck. I watched him walk to the scorer's table. I watched the set of his shoulders. I watched the tilt of his head. I watched him. The horn sounded. He walked onto the floor. I did the only thing I knew how to do. I walked past the scorer's table. I met him on the open floor. I tapped him on the chest. I said very quietly, "I love you, man. Go play." He said very quietly back, "Yes, Daddy." I want to tell you the moment underneath the moment. The moment underneath the moment was the moment I looked over my shoulder before I walked back to the bench. I looked at the front row. I looked at the woman in the black turtleneck. I mouthed very quietly, "Thank you." She mouthed back very quietly, "Okay." That is the love story. The love story is the single word, "okay," mouthed across the front row of an NBA arena between a girl from Akron and a kid from Akron on the night their son became the first son to walk onto an NBA court with his father. The Lakers won the game 110 to 103. Bronny played 3 minutes. He got a rebound. He did not score. The next morning on the front of the Los Angeles Times, the headline was about the father and the son. The headline was, "Fine." The sentence underneath the headline was the sentence I was going to keep Savannah Renee. Thank you for picking the bus in October 2002. Thank you for running for it. The towel kept its folded shape on the back of my neck on the bench the entire fourth quarter until I took it off. Here is what happened next. Chapter 21. Savannah. Everybody's crazy. I want to tell you about a podcast. I never on any honest accounting expected to have a podcast. I am the watcher. I am the listener. I am the one in any room who will sit on the couch and watch the conversation for 40 minutes before opening her own mouth. I am the one who has said the single word, okay, about 3,000 more times than my husband has said any single word, did not want to be the talker. My friend April had been telling me since 2022 that I had to talk. April is the second sister of my entire adult life. April came into my life. April has, since 2007, been the second voice in any kitchen I walked into. April said, "Savannah Renee, you are sitting on the inside accounting of an entire generation of women, and you are not talking. We are going to start a podcast." I said no. April kept asking. April asked me on every single phone call we had for 18 months. April did not give up. April kept doing her honest work. I said yes on a Tuesday afternoon in February 2024. I want to tell you why I said yes. I said yes because I had been sitting in the back row of every conversation I had had on every Tuesday afternoon of my entire life with another woman, and I had been wanting to walk to the front row. I had been wanting to say things out loud. I had been wanting to talk about the private accounting of being a wife of a husband-shaped public figure for whom the cameras have been on for 23 years. I had been wanting to give the set of 3 women on a Tuesday morning in a Coconut Grove kitchen in 2010 who did not ask me about my husband, the gift of having an entire generation of other women they could turn around and have a coffee with. I had been wanting to give the gift back. We launched the podcast on April 30th, 2024. I want you to know that on the morning of April 30th, 2024, in the kitchen of the Brentwood house, with the sun on the marble counter and jewelry on the kitchen stool, with a glass of orange juice and a piece of dry toast, I was terrified. Jewelry looked up from the toast. "Mama, yes, baby. Are you scared? Yes, baby. Why, Mama?" I looked at her. I looked at the dry toast. I looked at the steady 10-year-old girl on the kitchen stool with the instincts of her grandmother and her mother and the steady chain of women who had raised her. "Baby," I said, "I am scared because I am not used to talking." "Mama," my daughter said, "Yes, baby. You talk to me all the time. Yes, baby. Just, Mama, talk to the people the way you talk to me." I almost cried. I did not. I never cry on a kitchen stool in front of my own daughter. I kissed her on the temple. "Yes, baby," I said. "I will." I want to tell you on this page what the podcast has taught me. The podcast has taught me that the work of being a wife and a mother and a girl from Akron is the work of an entire generation of women I had never met. The podcast has taught me that the single word, okay, mouthed across a room or a kitchen or a hospital chair or the front row of an NBA arena is the steady currency of love. The podcast has taught me that the sentence I had been writing in pencil on the bottom of every kitchen island of my entire adult life, "I am Savannah Renee Brinson of Akron, Ohio, and I will walk down this aisle with my own self," was The sentence the entire generation of women on the other end of the microphone had been waiting to say back to me. The toast kept its dry edges on Jury's small white plate on the marble counter the entire morning of the launch, until the dog came over and ate it. Here is what happened next. Epilogue. I will give you the kitchen. It is a Sunday morning in late April, 2026. The kitchen is in Brentwood, California, in a house we have, by then, lived in for 8 years. The marble island is the same one I have wiped down every Sunday morning since the spring of 2018. The dog is on the rug. The husband is on his second coffee. The daughter is at the kitchen island with a small piece of toast and a small glass of orange juice and a notebook and a pencil. She is 12 years old. She is doing her homework. The 2 boys are not in the kitchen. The older one is in his own apartment, 2 miles east, with his own girlfriend and his own kitchen and his own dog. The younger one is at the kitchen table in the corner with a sandwich, half watching a college basketball game on the television in the next room, half doing nothing. I am in the kitchen, on the stool at the corner of the island, with a glass of unsweetened iced tea and a Tuesday morning notebook that has been the place I have been writing the sentences I, on my own honest accounting, want to put on the podcast. The husband, on his second coffee, looks up. Baby, he says. Yes, I say. 24 years. Yes, I say. 24 Aprils, he says. Yes, I say. From Outback Steakhouse to the Brentwood kitchen. Yes. Baby, he says. Yes. I would do every single one of those Aprils again. I look at him. I look at the set of his shoulders. I look at the tilt of his head. I look at him for a long time. Yes, I say. I would too. I will tell you what I want you to take away from this book. A love story is not the meeting. The meeting is the easy part. The meeting is on a Friday night football bleacher in Akron, Ohio, in October 2002. And the meeting is the only part of the love story the cameras get to see. A love story is the repetition. A love story is the Tuesday morning, 24 Aprils later, in a kitchen on the other side of the country, when one of the 2 of you looks up from your second coffee and tells the other one of you, very quietly, that you would do every single one of the Tuesday mornings again. A love story is the single word okay, mouthed across a hospital chair, a Coconut Grove couch, a Booktel cafeteria, a Shelbourne balcony, a Grand Del Mar chapel, a Crypto.com arena. A love story is the steady palm-up hand, on the bedspread, on the chair arm, on the bench. A love story is the steady chain of women who raised the 2 of you. A love story is the dishwasher humming at 2 in the morning, with a baby asleep on the chest of an 18-year-old in suburban Cleveland, while the husband is in Sacramento. A love story is the work. I want you to know, on this page, the sentence I, on every Tuesday morning of the last 24 years, have been saying back to my own self. Love is hard. Love is worth it. Love stays. I will say it once. I will not repeat it. The sentence does not need to be said twice in one book. The sentence is the single piece of furniture you have to keep in the private accounting of your own kitchen every Tuesday morning for as long as you are alive. The sentence does not get to be put away in a closet. The sentence does not get to be folded into a drawer. The sentence stands every Tuesday morning with a small piece of toast on a small white plate next to it, and a glass of orange juice, and a child's homework, and a husband on his second coffee, until the dog comes over in the kitchen, kept doing its honest work. I am Savannah. I am just a girl from Akron. He is just a kid from Akron. We picked each other on purpose. The kitchen kept its steady warmth on the marble counter the entire Sunday morning, until the dog came over and looked up at us with the expectant eyes of a dog who had been promised a piece of bacon and got one. That is the love story. Thank you for the 2 hours. Barron's note: this book is inspired by publicly available material about real people. Interior emotional content has been dramatized. No scandal, infidelity, abuse, or private family detail has been invented. Where the public record was silent, the narrative has been softened, omitted, or generalized. The two principals, LeBron James and Savannah Renee James, have been generous with the public record of their meeting, their courtship, their wedding, their 3 children, their move from Cleveland to Miami in 2010, their move home to Cleveland in 2014, their move to Los Angeles in 2018, the I Promise School in Akron, the Reframe Beauty launch, the Everybody's Crazy podcast, and the steady accounting of a marriage that has been conducted in the most public possible spotlight. Quotes used in this manuscript come from publicly available interviews, podcasts, and feature stories. Some have been condensed, recombined, or rendered in the cadence of the Books by Barron Love Stories series House Voice. None has been fabricated. Where the manuscript dramatizes a private kitchen scene, a hospital chair conversation, a porch goodnight, or a couch confession, the dramatization is grounded in the real public record of who these 2 people have said they are. I want to thank LeBron and Savannah on this page for the gift of a love story that has been a masterclass in staying. I want to thank Gloria James and Wanda Brinson, the 2 mothers in the kitchens of 2 different houses on 2 different sides of Akron, for the steady work of raising the 2 principals of this book to be the 2 adults they have, on every honest assessment, become. I want to thank Bronnie, Bryce, and Jury for the gift of being the 3rd, 4th, and 5th main characters in a love story they did not audition for. I want to thank, on this page, the medical team at the Galen Center at the University of Southern California, the trainer who, on the morning of July 24th, 2023, started compressions inside of 10 seconds, and the cardiac team at Cedars-Sinai, who kept the chain of hands going long enough for an 18-year-old freshman to walk out of an elevator on the morning of July 27th in a wheelchair, and to walk 14 months later in a Lakers uniform onto the open floor of an NBA arena on the night of his 20th birthday with his father. The Books by Barron. Love Stories series tells real love stories of real couples in real kitchens on real Tuesday mornings, with real respect for the public record and real care for the private accounting of every reader and listener who, on every honest 2-hour walk, has given us their time. This is Baron Darby, reminding you that love isn't easy, but it's always worth it. And the kind of love that matters, it stays.